Hey. Do you have a computer with you?
I have my phone.
Okay. I did that a couple weeks ago. The computer they had set up for Pete didn't work, so I passed him my laptop. I used my phone in the hallway.
Oh, if Pete's not working, I let him in. It says it is. But I did have to go in there a different way because of the numbers that were put in. I'm going to put counselor in front of everybody's name that are counselors. Jason has his, so we'll set up Pete's. Put counselor. Okay. We're done with that. We got Annalise. And Brent will become a counselor. Rename. Look at those palm trees.
Don't I wish?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Want to change your camera just a little bit because when the employees set it up, it looks like it's a little high.
Oh, where is that thing?
It should be right on top of the.
Oh, yeah, here it is right there. Okay. That didn't work. Yeah, how's that? That a little bit better? Can you see me? I know.
Mhm.
How's that? Any better?
Oh, Amanda's got a good picture.
Come on.
Hello.
Hello.
What do you know?
I can come
You
over.
know, maybe I'll get this right after a while.
I'm going to
Nope.
put counselor here. Rename. So we got counselor. There we go. I'll come over and check that. Some of those moves.
Oh, well.
I'll be right back.
Can I steal a chair, Tim?
Yeah, you can.
All right, we'll let Heather back in.
Stuff, I'm telling you.
Oh, that looks good, Tim. You're all set.
I'm here.
You're all set.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yep, yep. Good too. I like the picture behind Pete. That looks really nice. All the brick and everything.
Catherine, I think I'm back logged in, but I am not seeing, I'm seeing your video, but I'm not seeing video from anyone else.
Look at yours. You're in there. It looks good. Let me click on more and see if anything's going on. Make host, rename. Do you want to try it again? I don't see anything I can click on.
Check your view, Heather. It's possible that your view is on speaker mode and not gallery mode.
Oh, could it have moved over? Yeah, because we like it on gallery mode. I can see you really well, Heather, and everybody. Can you see everybody now, Heather? So Heather needs to unmute herself. I don't think I can do it.
No, I did it. I was just talking to everyone and you couldn't hear me.
You look like
I
a
can see everyone's video
young teenager.
now. The signal on this, I've only got 2 bars. I think it's having trouble picking up.
I was going to say you look like a teenager with your braids. So it looks like Heather's trying it again here. We had a nice location down in the council chambers.
Yep. You know, it just dawned on me. I'm sitting here looking at a picture of myself on the screen. When I was a teenager, I looked like Epstein on Welcome Back, Kotter. Now I look more like Wilfred Brimley, I think. I'm not sure.
You know, I don't know who those people are.
The Quaker Oat Man.
Oh, Donnie's here too.
Okay, do we want to go ahead and get started?
Yes, I sent out notices to a variety of people who express interest in agenda items, and it also is posted on the website. So I think we have the people that we're going to have this evening.
Okay, I am losing people's video in and out, so just speak up if you want to say something, because I might not be able to actually see you tonight. But we'll get started. So welcome to the regular Pittsfield Town Council meeting for Tuesday, March 16th. And we are meeting via Zoom tonight. And first item is to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. We have the assessor computer there with a flag. So why don't we pledge to that flag tonight, because I don't have a flag behind me. We'll be a little creative here tonight. So, I pledge allegiance
To the
to the flag
Allegiance to the
of the
flag
United States
of the United States of America
and to the republic
and to the republic
For which stands
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
God,
under
indivisible,
God,
with liberty,
indivisible, with
justice for
liberty and justice for all.
all. 2021. I'll look for a motion.
Heather, I think you cut out. What are
Look,
we
move
motioning?
we adopt. Yeah, we missed that, Heather. Part of your transmission got cut out.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and switch over because I can't.
Okay.
What's that?
Oh,
I can hear you now.
Is that picking up now?
we can hear you good.
Okay. I just couldn't hear anybody else. All right, so did we get a first for that? For adoption of minutes?
Can
We're
you
not
really-
sure
can-
what you were
Yeah,
trying to
what you said.
motion for.
Oh, okay. I'm looking for somebody to motion for adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 2nd.
Move we adopt the minutes as presented.
Second that.
Thank you, Tim. Are you second?
Who was the second?
Pete.
All right.
Pete? Okay, thank you, Pete. Discussion counselors, do you have any changes or adjustments to the minutes as presented? I'm not hearing anything from anyone. Okay. All those in favor of adopting the minutes of the March 2nd meeting as presented, please say aye.
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 I heard 4 ayes there. I don't know who said it, but I heard 4 of them. So anybody opposed to that?
No. I'm gonna go check on Heather and see if we can move to maybe a different location here. I'll be right back. Okay, let's take the numbers. All right, we're moving to a different Wi-Fi because we've got a few of them here and some others from other buildings too. So I think this will work much better.
All right, I am back with a different network. So this looks like it's working much better. So adoption of minutes was completed. Did anybody have any objections to those minutes passing?
Nobody had.
Okay, great. Let's move on then. Presentations, congratulations, and introductions. Our first item is a meeting with Annalise Hefford. Catherine, do you have any background on this before Annalise starts?
Yes, very quickly. Annalise Hafford, the Vice President of Oliver Associates and our licensed operator of both Pittsfield Waterworks and the wastewater systems, is going to discuss a number of items with us tonight. We're going to focus on the need for a water rate increase. We had talked about and actually had planned for that last year and placed higher budgets both for expense and revenue for 2020. But obviously, as we got into the year, in a pandemic, when people are struggling to make payments, you would not be implementing a rate increase. And so although the budgets were a lot higher and the revenues listed a lot higher, we spent within the old budget. Each year, our expenses do not go over our revenues. However, we struggle with the water to make sure that that does not happen. And then in the last few years, there has been a new paper entry that is made for depreciation, which then throws everything off. So we need to look at the water rate increase so that we can go ahead with some of the enhancements that need to take place and some of the items that we would need to do to grow. So that's our main item that we're going to talk about tonight and the steps to go through. Annalise is going to review that. We'll briefly hit upon the water terms and conditions review, which you all have received a copy of, and the ordinance committee had seen that before. We'll talk briefly about the sewer ordinance review and the proposed timeline, and that was something citizens have requested and councils have requested to look at on one item, and so we decided to do a whole review of the ordinance because it was dated back to the 1970s. And then a few other important projects because we're trying to figure out how to pay for items that are necessary for the water system. The sewer system, because we were able to free up the USDA funding and did not have to place the $85,000 that was the required reserve allocation each year, that should do well in the future. So we would not need a rate increase with sewer at this point. So we'll turn this over to Annalise and let me know if you want to share the screen and I'll do that.
Okay, no, I think we'll be good. So I'm just going to go through the rate increase, and at any time you have any questions, just feel free to ask me a question, or you can wait to the end, however it's easier for you. And I'm just going to try to explain the reason why we need a rate increase and kind of the process of how to go about getting this done and the amount of revenue changes that this would mean for the town. So as you probably all know, we do have to file a water rate increase with the Public Utilities Commission. They have to take time to review it and make sure there's valid reasons for asking for the rate increase. They have a process they go through. It typically takes somewhere around a month, just to kind of give you an understanding for that. And we have done the draft rate increase kind of back, and we've been working on it for quite a while. It takes a while to prepare one. We did issue it in December for review. Just didn't seem like the right time to move ahead. And now I think we're kind of at a point where we really feel like we need to move ahead with it. As Catherine mentioned, we can't fund depreciation. There are increasing O&M costs to run the facilities correctly. And there's projects that really need to be done to keep the system sustainable. And without a rate increase, none of these things can really be done. So that's kind of why we need to do the increase. To kind of begin on a rate increase, what we really have to do is establish a model. And what that is to make sure we understand how the current rates actually come up with the revenue that you get right now. So we basically put together in the package that you probably received copies of for the rate increase, we kind of predicted, we want to make sure our predictions are accurate. So if we tell you when you raise the rates to a certain number, you're actually going to get to the revenue that you need. So we did build that model, which is kind of the biggest and hardest part of doing a rate increase because we have to put all the customers into an Excel kind of a modeling type of system. And we predicted that your current revenues would bring in about $411,000. And that's pretty close to what you actually did bring in the year that we used. We used 2018 as a base year because that year everything was all the meter readings. We had a really good basis to analyze the existing rates. The actual was 405,000, which is only a little bit off. Probably a lot of that is revenues that may not have been collected for one reason or another. So we feel that our predictions are very accurate. And using that predictions, we basically are looking to try to come up with a budget closer to a little bit over $600,000. And I know that sounds like a big difference, but the rates have been stagnant. And I think the last rate increase we did back in 2009, our company actually helped the town do that rate increase. So that's over 12 years ago. That's a long time to stay with a flat budget. And there are a lot of things that the town on the water side needs to accomplish. And if you do, I know nobody wants to hear about rates increasing, but your rates really are on the water side very low when you compare them to other communities. I'm very involved in water management in 26 communities now, water and sewer. So the numbers that you guys have for water rates are really quite low when compared to other communities. And part of that is you have a fairly large community, a lot of customers. That helps, but they're too low really for future plans. So basically, the amount of the proposed increase was about $19.30 a quarter for the average residential user. And that represents a quarterly average user rate of about an increase from 40.20 to 59.50. And those annual numbers would be and this is on average, this isn't for the higher users. On average, they would increase from $160 to about $238 for the minimum charge. So it's a fairly, it's a small dollar amount increase, but it's if you do percentages, it's not a small increase, but it's because the rates stayed flat for so many years to be able to get to the budget that we're striving to get to, which is a little bit over $600,000, we need to get to those sort of numbers. The thing when you do a rate increase, it also impacts your fire protection charges. And I know that always makes people really happy because that impacts, what the numbers that go into the town tax base. And the fire protection charges need to be increased from around $115,000 per year up to about $184,000 per year. And the private fire protection for sprinkler services would also be increased, but that all varies depending upon the size of your fire protection line. So basically, the design of the rates stayed the same. We didn't change the way the rates are set up, but we did increase everything proportionately across the board. So in the rate increase package, are all the details of all the different numbers that we used. So I think the desire would be to start this process soon to achieve a July 1st, 2021 implementation date for the metered and private sprinkler system rates with a delayed start of the town's fire protection rates to correspond with your budget year starting January 1, 2022. That would be the basis of what we're trying to do here. And I just wanted to mention, in case you have questions about the fire protection number, I know it's a fairly large number and it does impact the town, but there's rules on how that number is established, and it's Chapter 69 of the PUC, the Public Utility Commission's rules. They require a certain process be used when you establish that, and it looks at the town population, the ratio of the computed peak flow of the system, and the required fire flow, and basically you just plot that on a curve, and you have to be no more than 30% of the actual budget. So as the budget is increased, the fire protection charges are also increased. You actually computed out to 39%, but we had to reduce it down to 30 because we're not allowed to go over the 30%. And it's very complex, and I hope I'm not boring you too much with this, but that's basically how we got the number that we got. And the PUC we'll review those calculations and make sure that our firm did it correctly. And they'll, obviously provide comments if there's anything that was done wrong with that. So there's some options with how to do the PUC doesn't like to see the customers have a different date than the fire protection date, but they are willing to provide a couple options of how that might happen to help with the town's budget. So option one, to be able to have a January 1st, 2022 implementation of the fire protection rate would be to set the metered rates and the fire protection rates with the same effective date, but provide the town with a payment arrangement so that they can pay the difference of that when the budget starts of 2022, January 1, 2022. And that's effectively about a $35,000 amount of money that would be delayed until the beginning of 2022. And then the other option, which is something that the PUC doesn't like to have facilities do, or towns or municipalities do, but we can do it, is to ask for a waiver of the rules in Chapter 69 and request that the water department operate with less funds between July and December, and that the rates for the remaining ratepayers could not be increased to make up the difference, obviously, on that required fire protection. But then the town would start theirs on July 1. The problem with that is it does take a lot more time for the rate increase to be finalized, and it does go to a higher level of scrutiny with the commissioners, as the other rate increase that we're doing would just go to the staff, PUC staff members, who are the ones that are usually reviewing fire protection requests. I have gone through the waiver process before, and there's a high level of scrutiny. It's not a simple process to get through, but I'm not saying it can't be done. So I just wanted to, it's something that needs to be decided before we file the rate increase. We would need to tell the PUC which way we were trying to go when we filed this. And I think it's important that everybody understand that, and Catherine mentioned it, is the water department isn't operating over budget. We're just not doing all the things that we really should be doing and need to do for the future to keep the infrastructure in good shape for all of the businesses and a lot of development going on in Pittsfield. So then there's some filing dates. So there's some options for filing dates. And it all surrounds the public meeting date and the council's desire to move forward on this. Nobody wants to do a rate increase, that's for sure. So I had kind of proposed two different possible dates. One could be a public meeting date of April 20th. The only thing that I have for a concern of that, we would have to file to the PUC by March 19th, which is pretty tight against the meeting tonight. Or we could have a public meeting date of May 4th, which then we would be able to have a little bit more time and get the filing to the PUC on April 2nd. I'm going to recommend the second public meeting date. I think it gives us a little bit more time to go over things. Obviously, this is a lot of information I'm throwing at you tonight. So I imagine you probably have a lot of questions. So
Could you hold on a second? Amanda has her hand up. Amanda, do you want to go ahead and ask your question before we get too much further?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not good with the protocol.
No, that's fine. You can't, I don't think you can see it. I don't know.
I can now.
Okay.
So I was just, first of all, I want to thank you for coming and for the presentation. What I'm curious about, you had mentioned that we are very low compared to other communities because we're larger. I'm curious, what is the typical rate for communities of our size?
Well, it's both because you're larger and I think tend to be pretty frugal and run on the mean and lean side of things when it comes to the utilities. So, I mean, I'm seeing numbers more like $400 a year. So you're still going to be lower than the average number at where you're going. You're still going to be on the low end, but you do have some good water users, and that helps the water base. The fact that you have some development that uses a lot of water, you're able to get some revenue that other communities with no commercial entities don't get to have. So they need to charge a little bit more to the residential to be able to make up that difference.
Okay, and then you had mentioned that the dollar amount looks very low, but the percentage amount looks high. What is the percentage amount we're looking at?
That I can tell you, wait just one second. It is about a, let's see, I'm pretty sure I have it here. I just have to look. Maybe I didn't put it down because I didn't like the number. I think it's like 40 something percent. I thought I had it in my calculations here. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but it's, I can calculate it in a minute.
48.75, does that sound right?
That does. It was like a little, yeah, it was under 50, but it was in the high 48. Oh, I have it right here, 48%. Yeah. I didn't write the number, I spelled it out. So yeah, I mean, and that doesn't sound great to people.
Yeah.
But when the number's low and you increase it, that's what happens.
So
Okay,
Annalise, as you originally were going to do a PowerPoint, I didn't give that huge stack of papers. The
Oh, I apologize. Yes.
problem at all. I think a summary sheet would be really good because this is complex regarding the payment for the fire protection, which has to be paid out of the town budget to the water enterprise fund. So obviously we can't add, we don't have $35,000 in the town budget for this to make the correct item requirement under the PUC requirement. So we would have to do a delay till next year, either by delaying everything, which isn't going to be good because of the enhancements that need to be done and the work that needs to be done to the system, which we'll hear a little bit about tonight, which is normal work. And then we don't want to try to waive this if we're really not eligible for it. So we probably
Yeah.
delay part of this. So I think a little chart would be really helpful for the counselors. There's a massive stack of papers that Annalise gave me, and then the option of what to do with the water payment for the hydrants was up in the air.
Right. No, I was supposed to do a PowerPoint. I apologize for that. My week got a little bit ahead of me. So I have kind of a typed up handout that I can email tomorrow, and then you can have that, and I'll attach the fire protection chart to it. It's not a chart that's in a nice format. You actually have to plot on it manually, but it'll give you an idea for how those calculations are done so that you understand where the numbers are coming from. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I'll distribute that to the town councilors. Thank you.
Yeah. So are there other questions about the rate? Just how it was calculated and how it was handled?
Annalise, when do we need to decide which option? You said when we file with the PUC for the public meeting, we need to tell them which option we would go with.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, so if we go with the second meeting date, if we have a public meeting on May 4th, we have to get public notices out to all of the customers by April 19th. And then we would have to file to PUC by April 2nd. So we would have to make a decision prior to April 2nd, because I don't want to file it incorrectly to the PUC, because that also causes red flags. So I'd rather have us know what we want to do when we file it. And we can always move these dates ahead. The reason these dates were picked is we're trying to kind of go with the goal by July 1st, having the new rates established. And I think it's doable if we do the public meeting date of May 4th. I think if we move any later in the year, that we're going to miss the July 1st implementation of this, because it takes time. The PUC has to go through all of the financial information that's in that pile of data that I gave to Catherine. So they have to go through, it's their responsibility to make sure everything's correct and done according to the rules. So anything later than that's might be hard to get done by July 1st. Okay.
Amanda, you had another question? And
yeah,
Catherine.
my concern with the 5-4, I mean, 4/20 is definitely not doable, but the 5-4 date, we don't have another meeting until April 6th. And if we have to have a decision ready by then, we have to have a decision tonight. And I don't think that that's plausible either, because I still want to see all of that information that we won't get until tomorrow. So is it possible that instead of having that on 5-4, that we could still do what we needed to do, but have it on the 18th.
I
It's
think
2 extra weeks, but I don't feel comfortable making a decision tonight without all of the information.
Annalise, I think that's fine. We would just be starting a little bit later to get additional revenue, but at this point, any revenue we can get is going to be helpful to move forward. So
Oh, I think that's fine.
it's
Yeah.
in August, it's not an issue because it will give us several months.
Right. No, I think it's definitely, and it's even possible if we do the payment arrangement idea, which it isn't really it sounds bad, but it's not. It's just basically then the town wouldn't have to make their fire protection payment until early in the next year. If we did that, I don't think there's going to be any big red flags about this rate increase because it's pretty obvious. The numbers show that you need to have more revenue. So I think that would still be fine. Yep, that makes a lot of sense to me because I don't think we want to rush this through. Everybody needs to be comfortable with what we're doing because the public's going to be asking everybody questions, not just at the hearing, but you'll hear it from customers and that type of thing.
I think that schedule with May 18th as the date will be very helpful. We can discuss it at the next couple of council meetings too, to help get the information out.
So is the summary going to show what the rate increase is going to be for our customer?
I can provide you with, so like, it won't show specific customers' names.
Right, yep,
It just shows basically if you have what size meter, what you pay for minimum and what you would pay for whatever amount of per gallon or so of water used above the minimum. But it doesn't list out customers and that type of thing. It's
right. No, I was just interested in now versus what it could be.
Yes, it does. And I can include that in the summary. Right now, what I have, the summary I'm speaking of doesn't show that, but I have that is in the rate increase. So I can pull little pieces of the rate increase into what I get emailed tomorrow. But the big packet probably would be kind of overwhelming to look at. But I can pull out the 2 sheets that show the differences. They summarize it. And then Catherine and I can go over it. And then if there's any questions, I can come to the next meeting and explain it if that's helpful.
Yes, it would be. Yep.
So I should be at the April 6th meeting. Is that?
That would be fine. I expected this was going to take 2 or 3 meetings. It did before.
I would expect it would as well. It's very complicated and it's not something anybody really wants to do. So I'd be more than happy to come to the next meeting to go over it once you've had more data to look at.
This would be just basically tonight, just an introduction.
And like I say, it's really important to feel comfortable with the data that you're working with. And I think I feel pretty good about the numbers and that we're going to get to where we need to get to as long, as the pandemic doesn't continue to deteriorate and people don't pay.
Also looking through here, though, there's other fees that are going to be added that haven't been in the past. Is that what I'm seeing in this packet?
You're looking at the terms and conditions, possibly?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, there was always fees in the terms and conditions in the past. We've just updated them to be more to the level of what people usually charge nowadays. Then they're not like for every single thing. They're for some significant things that the water staff has to do out into the in the system. So there were fees before. We've increased them slightly to be more appropriate to the fees that should be expected. And that was taken into account when I did the rate increase. I don't like to predict much with those fees because they're not something that you can always very well estimate. And there's always going to be the people that don't pay or a customer that you lose or something like that. So you don't want to count too much on those fees coming in because they're so variable. So you really want to do most of your work on the actual metered rates and the fire protection. And the other stuff that comes in will help make up for the fact that there's going to be some customers that don't pay for one reason or another. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Catherine, just to clarify here, some of the language changes in the new ordinance under chapter 9, those rate languages are to reflect so that we don't have to change the articles every time we have to change fees. Is that why we're updating some of those language instead of having the fee numbers in there?
That would be correct, along with updating some of the different items that have taken place over the years to make it more safer for everyone, as well as talking about the different construction standards. But yes, specifically, we want to, when we update ordinances, to take out the specific fees that are listed, because we can, through the town council, pass an order for the fees and not have to go in and change an ordinance each time. And the planning board actually discussed that last evening with the subdivision ordinance. So as we go in and update each ordinance, we would like to take the fees out and put them onto the town's fee schedule, which the council can amend as necessary.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, for this draft that you've given to us as draft number 2, this is after the ordinance committee has looked it over and made their suggestions. Is that correct?
The ordinance committee had an extensive session with myself, going through for a couple of hours with the changes that I had made. Draft 2 has the changes that Annalise has made, and this will be going to the ordinance committee at their meeting at the end of the month. Basically,
Okay, so this reflects the additional changes after Annalise has looked it over.
that would be correct. So
Okay, thank you.
in 2 different colors. And since Annalise was here, we thought this was a good opportunity with new counselors and people that hadn't been involved, that you would get a copy and see what was going on. There may be additional changes from the ordinance committee after they look it over.
Right, because on the terms and, yeah, excuse me, I was just gonna add on the terms and conditions, I left the fees in there. So if that's the desire, I would take them out and put them at the end when we're done with this, so that that goes along with the sewer ordinance.
And we did talk about that too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just to also, one last clarification with the draft. Which color is Annalise and which color is you? I've got red and blue here.
all right. So
I'm red and Kathy's blue.
Okay, great, thank you.
as we may recall, and for new counselors, it takes a lot of time and effort to update ordinances. And so to reduce the cost of this and fit it into the monthly sewer operator charge, I went through first getting ordinances from different towns, or quite a few towns, finding that either the ordinances were over 100 pages long and just nobody could ever even read them or get through them, or they were shorter, like ours. So I went through and took different language out, went over that with staff, and then we gave it to Annalise to look over and correct too.
Were there any other questions on the rate increase, or did you want me to explain a little bit about the terms and conditions? Or is it timely to do that?
I think that would be good.
Okay, so the terms and conditions, I just want to mention that they're a little bit different than the sewer ordinance in that they also have to be filed with the PUC. So the intent was to update them because they hadn't been updated since 2009. And doing it with the rate increase is a really good idea, because the PUC kind of scrutinizes whether or not we have strong terms and conditions when they do a rate increase. And so as they were a little bit old, they didn't reflect some of the new Chapter 660 regulations on collections and that type of thing. So we went through and updated them. Those were more extensively updated than the sewer ordinance, I would say, because they had, some antiquated language, and they were missing some important language to protect the water utility and also to protect customers. I could go through and explain a slew of the sections, but I don't know if that would be better fit to do with the ordinance committee. There were quite a few things that changed in there, and I'd be happy to go through the highlights of the changes, but I don't want to take time that isn't mine to take, and I'm not sure how much interest you have in having me do that.
So we
the
would,
one major interest I'd be interested in is what ended up happening with where the customer begins and the town begins when it comes responsible to the line.
Okay, what this, I'm talking water right now. So on water, it's always the customer.
Yeah, that's always the curb stop. Okay, yep.
Right, yeah, water's always the curb stop. And a lot of projects, just so you know, well, the other caveat with that is the town isn't really required to install new services. When I say it's always the curb stop, so if there's a new, say a new residential house, they're written such that the customer has to put in the full cost of the service. However, once that's put in place, then the town is responsible for the main to the curb stop to keep that maintained up into including to make sure curb stops are working.
Yeah, I guess I was more interested in the sewer.
Okay, gotcha. And you know, you got to understand, a lot of you are new to me. I haven't worked with, I know Tim and, but I haven't worked with all of you before, so I have a hard time knowing where you might be coming from. So, but if there's any other questions, there's a lot of changes to the terms and conditions. A lot of things needed to be vetted out. You know, the water system, they've dealt with a lot of things in the past, and that kind of was some of the reasons why things changed. And also, like I said, some of the rules have changed, and we did want to add some ability to provide a once every 5-year abatement to help people out on a catastrophic leak. So we did add some language in the terms and conditions for that.
I guess my big question, if I could, is in the terms and conditions, you do list titles and chapters and places where people can reference the rules and statute for the state.
Mhm.
Is there a way to create my concern is, having gone through some legislative processes now, when there's an update in the titles or titles are added, what is the easy avenue to be able to update this as those changes happen? And is this the easiest way that we can do it? If it is, that's fine, because I've never looked at water statute and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the changes, you know, are very rare that the chapter 660 was created and got rid of like chapter 81, or I may have it a little bit off there, but that's not all that common that there's such changes like that. It's more the content of that rule that changes. So when you refer to it, usually it's still the same section. So I don't think in the future there would have to be so many changes made to the terms and conditions. It just hadn't been touched for maybe around 12 years or so. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I don't really know.
No, that does. That
Okay,
does. I
yeah.
appreciate that. The other
Yeah.
question I had is, you said that there were things added in to protect the municipality, but also to protect the consumer. And I'm curious about what big changes were added to this for those particular protections.
Okay, so basically we added what I meant on protect the customer was the water abatement. I know that abatements are something hard and messy to get into because they do require some tracking by the town or the water department, however we decide to handle this. So this new language would allow, if somebody had a leak in their home, to request an abatement for that once every 5 years. So that's something that helps the customer. Also we put in there some language that if somebody lost their service, that the water department would legally be allowed to run them a temporary service if it was impractical to fix it, or some means or something like that. It's a minor detail, but it's important to have in here that you're actually allowed to do that. And some of the changes that you know, protect the utility and actually protects customers too is unauthorized use of water. We don't want people bypassing their water meter and not paying the bill and then having everybody else pay for that. There's been some instances of things like this happening in water systems, and you want to make it clear to the customer what will happen to them if they do those things. So that's kind of things like that. Doing backflow prevention testing. That protects the customers throughout the system if they have a testable backflow device, making it clear to them that they are required to provide a test to the water utility for every testable backflow device every year. has always been a struggle. And getting that language in here is important. And then fire hydrants, proper notice on fire hydrants. I don't know if this is a sensitive topic or not, but it's really important for the water department to know if somebody's using a fire hydrant. So even if it's training for fire department needs, notifications to the utility for things like that are really important, such that they can properly be pumped out and checked, especially in the wintertime, because we've had some frozen hydrants, not so much in Pittsfield, but in other systems. So I could go on and on. So it is a lot of changes, and I'm happy to do so, but I don't know if that kind of gives you some ideas of some of the things.
It does, thank you. And one last question. You had talked about the responsibility being to the curb stop of the town. So the curb stop itself would be the town's responsibility. I see in here that there's charges for ice, snow, and other obstacle removal if the shutoff valve needs to be accessed.
Right.
And which makes perfect sense that since it's on the customer's property, they would need to be responsible for clearing that. Who's responsible for the shutoff valve when there is a heave and it has now lifted above the property line, above the ground line, and needs to be pushed back down?
Well, the utility is responsible for the maintenance of the curb stops, and when they've failed, they're responsible to fix them. And, obviously they cannot all be fixed overnight. And that's part of the need to have adequate rates, is to be able to do these things that need to be done, because water utility supplies are expensive. But the heave that you described, what I would be called maintenance of the curb stop, and if that's in a driveway, I would find that would be the water system needs to fix it. If it's in the
Fantastic,
grass,
thank you.
yeah, if it's in the grass, they're often up a little bit, although that's also an issue with lawn mowing.
Yes.
But they're sometimes left that way so you can find them. And that's just that's a utility specific thing, and some leave them up high, some want them way down low. I am working with staff on getting all the ties up to date and making a list of everything that doesn't work, and it may be a very long list. And the point is, get the list out there, then we'll work at fixing everything, and it's going to take time.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because mine happens to be quite high. It started rising probably 2 years ago, and it's actually impacted our snow removal ability because we're afraid we'll hit it with the plow.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'm not the only one who has instances like that. I've heard other residents of the town talk about that, and just not understanding who's responsible to make sure that goes down so it doesn't accidentally get taken off by a plow.
Right. And that's my opinion of who would be responsible.
So that clarified that for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll put your name in the list.
Mike Gray has a question.
Annalise and maybe Donnie can pipe in on us too, but when you look at the water rates and the users and that sort of thing, do you take in any consideration as far as the town's fire code rating? Because typically, like a town class 7, 40% of that rating is based on water supply, availability of hydrants, those sorts of things. So is there any consideration in there for that?
There really isn't. When you do a rate increase, that would be more the town's insurance ratings, which that doesn't get reflected too much in the water department rate increase.
I mean, it would be if you had to, if you could lower the rate by putting out more hydrants, making the available water supply, those sorts of things. So
yeah. I mean, we are looking at water supply considerations as part of some of the projects that I'll be talking about in a minute. But as far as doing the rate increase, the cost of, right now, I think the important thing is to get all the hydrants working that are out there now. And when projects are done, all the firms that are involved in all your important projects, to make sure that they're putting in what is recommended as industry standard. It really, there are industry standards on where hydrants should be and how many you should have. And just, I think fixing what is there is going to be key to answering some of your questions, and upgrading water lines over over time.
Yeah, the issue is if you can decrease the town's class rating, then homeowners would get, lower homeowner rates and commercial fire rates. So you can mitigate the rate increase if there's some way to even take a look at that, but it's a thought.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. Donnie, did you want to chime in on that or have anything different to say, or you just agree with all that?
Well, no, it's one of those things that that we've discussed in the past is everybody's always looking at homeowners insurance, especially the commercial businesses in town pay dearly for their fire insurance. And one of the things that we talked about to be able to lower that, we've talked about in the past, was to be able to provide a better flow and better access to water. And that's always something that's up for grabs. I know if we start upgrading our water district, I think that probably that could be something that could be discussed down the road, because it's one of those things that I think is going to save us money. Again, we would have to do a lot of flow testing, and that, as Annalise said, one of the things that becomes really bothersome is, and I've had that discussion with Chris before, is, you know, notifying your water district that we have people that don't notify the water district, and they're using actual fire hydrants for wash downs and stuff commercial businesses do. And that sometimes puts a hard usage on those hydrants. And when you got 168 hydrants and you pull up to one of the 42 that are broke or don't work because somebody didn't notify somebody they were going to use it and didn't operate it properly, is also a big cost, and it's a big concern. And one of the things I've talked about with Chris we've got in quite a debate about it, was that not just Pittsfield Fire, but mutual aid fire companies that come in that actually hook those hydrants during a fire. I'm a big proponent of making sure that they know, because they're going to have to come out in the wintertime, and we don't want to cause any unnecessary damage. But there was some cause of concern where he said that the fire departments Pittsfield Fire couldn't hook into a hydrant. And I told him that under state statute, if somebody's house is burning, there's nobody that's going to stop me to get the available water supply, because under Title 37B entitles me to get water from. And one of the concerns is, we talked about this about 4 years ago. I think the rate used to be right around 99,000 or something that the town had paid for fire protection. And as the cost of hydrants go up to, $7,000 a piece, not very many of those can get replaced. So I just want to add that, probably the rate increase is something that's good. We definitely need to invest it back in that infrastructure. So not only is it going to benefit us there, it's going to benefit us on the fire protection end of it as well. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Donnie.
Yeah, and some of the reason too for fire flow is pipe size, as you all probably make sense to you. The older cities and towns have a lot of smaller cast iron piping, and it's just going to take a while to get that, upgraded. That's not inexpensive work. And there's a lot of 6-inch water mains around, which nowadays that's not a normal design size for a main road with fire hydrants. So that's going to probably be more key than more hydrants, honestly, and getting all of the hydrants fixed. Any more questions on the terms and conditions? I mean, there's a lot of information in there. And again, this is going to be discussed with the ordinance committee meeting that I will be attending as well. And I can send you all with my email tomorrow. It's kind of like a highlight summary of the terms and conditions. I can email that so you all have that and you can read through it.
Sure, that would be great, Annalise. And our ordinance committee is next week, next Tuesday evening. So counselors, if you come across extra questions between now and then, when you get to look at the packet from Annalise and any additional information that comes in, certainly chime into that meeting. I'm sure we're going to be discussing this in detail.
I did schedule Annalise to come to the meeting, ordinance committee meeting next Tuesday evening.
Excellent.
We'll have more information then in the summary.
Yeah.
Did you want to move on to sewer ordinance review proposed timeline, Annalise?
Yeah, so back on the terms and conditions, once we're done with it, I just want to add this. We do have to upload it into the PUC website, and that takes a month too. On the sewer ordinance, so the sewer ordinance, as we spoke about, both Kathy took the first stab at it, And then I went through and looked at it. And when I was kind of looking it over in preparation for this meeting, I did find one thing, Catherine, that I'll need to tell you that I need to cross off that was one of my changes that conflicts with one of your changes. So we want to get that fixed, but it's minor. So basically, as was mentioned, as the sewer ordinance hadn't been updated for quite some time. I really didn't know the date of the original ordinance, but I think you did a great job pulling in a bunch of impertinent information from other ordinances. And then I just went through and tried to add some language that I thought we should have based on my knowledge of various sewer ordinances. And I think this is going to make things work a lot better for the town. So some of the substantial changes, it's just strengthening the ordinance when a property needs to connect to the public sewer. It's important to try to get, most people connected into the public sewer versus in septic systems. So it did strengthen that. And it did provide a special sewer service charge for high strength dischargers. I think that's really important because of all the commercial activity that you have going on. And if there's ever to be, there is certain types of, development that has a BOD strength or organic strength, I should say, that's higher than what a residential user would discharge. And I think it's a really good idea to put that, the ability of the town to calculate a different rate for someone that's going to pollute more than the average residential user. So I think that's a really important thing. And again, there's some abatement language in this as well. And I think that once, every 5 years, everybody ought to be cut a break. I know it's a tracking thing. Somebody's going to have to track that. So obviously, people, that's another level of work that needs to do. It does make it clear that sewer extensions must be paid by the customer. So my understanding of the ordinance, and it might get to Peter's question, is I believe that if there's new construction, that the residential customer has to install the sewer service to the main. It's pretty common. I'm not sure if that was your question, but and another really important thing that it added is demolished buildings must properly plug or cap the sewer services. That would be any removal of mobile homes or anything like that is a really common issue in many municipalities with people ripping out a building and leaving an open sewer stub in there and then having all that extra flow get into the system, which you've tried to spend a lot of money to stop. And then you have other people that haven't been doing that. And it does require maintenance of grease traps and permits the wastewater staff to inspect them or code enforcement. And also, Kathy added in there some stronger pretreatment language for industrial discharges, which is very important with all the new growth that you're having to give some strength and making them understand they have to connect into manholes such that there's an inspection location for the wastewater staff to be able to check out. So it was kind of it wasn't as, I think there was a lot of things added to it that are really important, but I don't really think the ordinance itself changed all that much, but I might have misinterpreted it. But what do you think, Kathy? Do you think that's fair?
I think that's a fair statement. We've clarified a lot of items that have happened over the years and picked out information. I mean, DEP was very clear with us that they wanted a whole pre-treatment ordinance, and we weren't interested in that because of the system that we have and the low number of issues we've had. So we have added a little language in case a user comes that needs the additional testing beyond the couple that we have. So I think we've been reasonable on that. We clarified some items that conflicted, and then we put more language in to make things clearer. And then because I was taking information out of 5 different ordinances that seemed interesting, you fixed a few things that needed to be clarified of what I did, which was good. The more people that work on it, the better.
I'm seeing
So-
Jason has his hand up with a question.
Yeah, you just mentioned that if it was a new service that you would go to the main on the sewer. What about existing services for the sewer part?
I thought it was the same thing, honestly, but I may
Is
be
it-
wrong.
For existing, it's to the main as well.
Yes, the only time, like, I believe that's true, but if there's a project, say there's a new sewer being installed, I think that the practice has always been on an upgrade, like if you're replacing a sewer in a street. I think the town and mostly all communities I work in go to the right of way. So if there's a new sewer being installed, like we've done projects in the past with you folks, and we always went to the right of way, and the town's project paid for that. But if there's a maintenance issue, I believe the ordinance reads that the customer goes to the main.
Okay,
That's
so it's
pretty-
a little different than the water, then the water just goes to the curb.
It's very
Sewer goes
different,
to the main.
yes. Yeah, the water is through kind of the PUC rules, and they don't recognize that piece in the road as the water, as the customers. That comes right out of the PUC rules, where the sewer ordinance is different. It's not the same rules.
Okay.
Okay. Does that answer
Is
your
that,
question?
is that applicable for like main, like state-owned roads? Or is
It
that
doesn't-
different for those?
It doesn't really, it doesn't really matter whether it's state-owned or not, but Catherine did add language in here. If there was a moratorium on a state road or a reason why the road couldn't be opened, then there'd be some waivers of certain requirements in the ordinance, but it was more to requiring somebody to connect to the sewer than fix something. I'm not sure if that answered your question. It doesn't matter if it's a side road or a state road, the ordinance doesn't recognize that when it comes to who pays for what.
Okay, yeah, I was just kind of curious where we're doing the Main Street project in the next couple of years, how that would maybe impact those people on that
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, Catherine, do you want me to speak to that a little bit, what we're doing there, or would you want to answer that question?
Go ahead. We're looking at that whole area. We did a sewer flow study and identified different items that needed to be done, but didn't do all of Main Street. So we're going to be doing a project shortly that hopefully
Nice.
will be within the budget.
Yeah, so we're gonna video the sewer on Main Street and try to get to some of the other cross-country pieces. And if that were to show that it needed to be replaced, then the sewer services in that area would be replaced to the right of way as well. So we're gonna analyze the way that sewer looks as far as the condition of it to make sure that it's not in poor condition. I think we're gonna find that it's an older sewer on Main Street. And I know there's some issues going on there with that cross-country line behind some of the homes there. So we're gonna
Brent,
try.
did you have another question?
You muted.
You're still muted.
Brent needs to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me
There you
now?
go.
There.
Yeah,
So we're saying that the water has a cutoff at the curb for the customer, but the sewer goes all the way out to the main line. The customer is responsible for that. That's what we're saying?
That's my understanding of the current drafts, the way they're written right now.
Is that the way it is in most towns?
It's quite common in most towns, but it's not always that way. I wouldn't want to lead you astray. Some towns are different. I work in many towns, so I do know some towns on the sewer side. The water, it's always the way this is written. On the sewer side, it's done, a lot of towns do all the way to the main, and some towns do to the right of way. It's variable. I wouldn't want to tell you that it's any one way. And there's no law on that. That's a public, that would be you guys's choice of how to do that.
Because, in my thinking logic here, that when you're redoing a road and you're redoing the sewer line, the customer is not gonna pay to have it fixed out on the road until it actually ruptures or leaks.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And when projects are done, they always go to the right of way. Like if the town's doing a sewer upgrade project, even though in the ordinance, if they have a malfunction, the customer would have to pay for it. But in a project, the project always pays to the right of way. And all of the towns that I've been involved, all the projects I've been involved in Pittsfield.
Okay.
Did I confuse you?
No. I have a couple other questions on this section then. In, on one of the articles here, it said back to if you had a septic system and the town then ran the sewer line in front of your house, you're gonna have to hook onto the sewer and cap off your septic. Is that what I understand?
That is my understanding of how this is written right now. Now I have, just to throw it out there for full discussion, I have seen ordinances that give people in that situation certain amount of years to do that. And there is variances in here if the road is a DOT roadway or if the connection is over 100 feet away. So there's some variances in here. I think that the intent is to try to get most of the residents who are kind of having septic systems and that type of thing to connect on to public sewer.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
all right. I said that the homeowner may not want to pay that extra expense.
I understand that.
The other thing I had, a couple questions in here, was it mentioned about sewer and testing. Do we periodically go around and test some of these manholes to see what may be dumping in there that we're unaware of?
One of the things that will be happening with some of the new, commercial establishments that are coming online is that will be a requirement to do some checks and balances on what may be coming in from different places. I don't know of any instance where we've seen anything scary coming in from anybody. But as certain commercial establishments are developed, things like that will have to be done.
All right, thank you.
And the condition of manholes is something too that they're going to be monitoring as well.
Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. I think Annalise mentioned the cross-country lines. And there are a few houses down here on the south end of Main Street that actually have the sewer main running. And we need some clarification. Is it actually a main, but it runs out behind our houses? There is no main sewer main on Main Street.
Right, I understand in that location, right?
So, I mean, my concern is, where am I responsible to? The line that's, 150 feet behind my house? Or do I have to go all the way down to the interceptor or something like that? And sooner or later, I think there's been problems with that line in the past, and sooner or later, it's going to have some work on it.
Right, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that the main itself is the town's. And I haven't gotten into this enough yet to know if there's an old easement that goes through there that clearly defines the width of the what belongs to whom. But I believe the main line going through there is the town's line, and the lateral from your house or somebody's house would be the customer's line. What I can't answer really tonight is there 5 feet connected to the main that belongs to the main was within the easement that was the town's. I don't know the answer to that right now.
There never was any easements.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. We are trying to get that videoed as well. Right off. We're working on trying to video that in the Main Street sewer that Jason brought, that discussed earlier under the new DOT work. The problem is the access to that cross-country line isn't the best. So, and we don't want to damage, anything trying to get to it, but we are going to try to get some better idea on the condition of that line. Because it sounds to me like it is problematic.
And I'll throw it out anytime you want to come across my property. I have a manhole that we actually installed years and years ago. So it would be a good access for you.
Okay, excellent. Yep.
Either north or south. So.
All right. Well, we'll probably be talking to you then.
I'm sure.
Jason, you had another question, and then Catherine.
Just right quick, is there drawings that these folks can provide the counselors, or make it readily available for the town residents or whatnot?
You mean maps of the sewer lines?
Yeah, yep.
I know there's an overall sewer map that we have a copy of, but I also know that overall sewer map doesn't show the cross-country line we're talking about today. because I didn't even know it was there until Chris mentioned it to me. So there is an overall sewer map that shows, what is known. And one of the things that we're doing as our work on the wastewater side is over time, correcting that map and updating it, included in our operations contract, because we are required by DEP to do inspections of cross-country lines and manholes. And that's all new, that's not something that they've done a lot of yet. So with that work, we will be putting that stuff on the map, but I could scan an email to Catherine, this PDF of the overall map. But it's going to look, kind of tiny on your screen. But I can, I can print them in full size and send them to Catherine, and then she could, give them to you guys if you want them. But I don't think the average person in town is going to want it, and it needs to be updated. And I honestly don't even know if it's our map or it's probably a map that we've tried to update from the work that's been done that we're aware of. But there's been a lot of people working on your sewer system that we may or may not know what they've done. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yep, it does.
Catherine?
The map comes from Derigo Engineering, who did a study to locate both water and sewer prior to my arrival here. We've been updating the map as we go along, as Annalise has indicated, because there are items that need to be put on there. Cross countries weren't on there and not found. And so the cross-country line on what used to be known as South Main Street is not part of the Main Street project. The sidewalk will come down in the right of way, but we thought since we were going to video and look at the business locations and along the sewer line to see the condition, that we would try to pick up that cross-country line that has been troublesome over the years. There's no easement to my knowledge. It's been a difficult situation. We had an abutter who would not let people in, but we did try to video part of it and you can't get through. So this is an issue. And I thought later on the agenda, because it's going to be a lot of stimulus money, this could be something that we could apply for, depending on how we can tie it into economic development. So, there may be a solution to that down the road here.
Okay. So, have we completed our sewer ordinance review discussion? Did you want to go on to timeline? We're going to be seeing all of this again. So, I would think the first thing on the timeline would be the ordinance committee meeting next week. We'll be meeting with Annalise again, and then obviously, we're going to be talking about this again on the April 6th meeting. Does anybody have any other pressing questions, or was there more on timeline schedule, Annalise, regarding the sewer, or is that going to pretty much follow the same as the water rate changes that we were talking about before?
Right. The sewer ordinance doesn't have the same approvals, regulatory approvals. It's more, town required approvals for ordinances.
I would think we would want to deal with them at the same time to minimize the expense of the advertising and everything. So for now, I would guess that we would just assume that we're on the same timeline dealing with both of these items.
Heather is correct. That's why we put everything all together. First of all, they were utilities. Second of all of associates became the operator for both systems. And then due to the cost of advertising and the cost to get everybody together and people's time being valuable, we thought we would just do everything at once, which would be one large project.
Amanda, did you have another question?
Yeah, in reference to the timeline, where we are changing the public hearing date to 5/18, what are the new deadlines for the public notice and the PUC?
I will want to email you that, because there's a whole kind of a list of the dates you have to figure, and I don't want to take time in the meeting figuring that out. If that's acceptable to you,
That's perfectly fine. If you can email that would be satisfactory. I appreciate it.
I don't want to tell you now and have it be wrong, so I'd rather look at the dates. It's because you have to have things 30 days before this and 30 days not before and after. It's confusing, so I will email that tomorrow.
Was there any other projects that you wanted to discuss, Annalise, other than the videoing of the main line under item number 4, other important projects?
Sure, yes. So we did want to go through, we had a few other, I'm not going to go over all the little things, but I had 3, and this will be really quick, things that we're working on, and I think we should all be talking about. So we're just getting ready to, if it's acceptable, apply for a capacity development grant to look at, it's kind of like a future sustainability of the water wells. As you know, there are 2 wells located adjacent to the treatment facility. Those 2 wells are only 10 feet apart from each other. So the smaller one was installed originally and the larger one was installed, sometime after that. And they were supposed to be run not together, really. Each one of them was supposed to be big enough to run the system. But as all water wells over time, they never really have their same original capacity when many years go by. So it's not really that surprising that they wouldn't have the same original capacity that they did. And they also tend to plug with fines. That's all something that maintenance can take care of, but it's difficult because they're 10 feet away from each other. And I think with all of the development that's going on in Pittsfield, we would like to try to get this grant and look at the feasibility of putting in another well adjacent to the treatment facility. I don't know if there'll be a vein that's acceptable, but this capacity development grant would provide 50% of the costs to do this type of study. You would, the deadline for applying is March 31st. You wouldn't find out whether you were eligible until sometime in May. So I think it's an important thing to be looked at. And also the wells, it's a normal thing for wells to slow down over time and also get plugged up with fines. It's nothing to be concerned about. It just needs to be monitored. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that's something that we would be working on. We would have to subcontract with a hydrogeologist because this is not work that our firm would do, but they would have to do a test well and determine if we could get another decent site at the water treatment plant to have another well that would also allow us to take the other ones down more often to do maintenance. Because now when you take one down, you have to take them both down because they impact each other. So that's just something that I wanted to discuss.
Amanda, did you have a question about the wells before she moves on to the second item?
Yes, just with the grant, you said it would cover 50%. So does that mean it's a 1-to-1 cost and we'd have to come up with the other?
Right, and the maximum grant that they provide is $20,000. And typically these studies don't cost more than 40. That's about, I would normally apply what I usually do because we don't really know all the details of what the cost would be until you know. There's no sense in getting a hydrogeologist on board if you're not going to get the grant, right? So usually what happens is you kind of do an estimate of what it has been costing, and usually the cost to the hydrogeologist alone is probably $25,000 to $30,000, and the remaining of the work is for sampling because you would want to do sampling to make sure the water was clean, and a little bit of time to put the report together. So typically these things cost about $40,000 to do. That's just, we've done probably 10 of them. That they vary depending upon what the hydrogeologist cost is. So it's a 1-to-1 grant. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then if there's no other, oh, sorry, I'm not good with looking up.
Okay, I was going to note we're struggling to figure out where the match would come from, but we will figure out something. It's a unique opportunity that zipped right up very quickly, and the council, if we were eligible and were awarded this, the council would discuss it at a meeting and decide if you were going to move forward or not. So just filing the grant, just like filing some of the other paperwork, is fine to do. And then we'll see where we're going. We might get a partial grant, we might get a whole grant, we might not get any grant. But because those 2 wells are so close together, we have to put them offline at the same time, which then with all the new development coming on and more development that we've just heard about that may be coming. We really need to get those maintained better, and that means a third well, if possible. So this is something that is good to look at for the future of the town and its growth. Thank you.
And then next item, if there's no other questions on that, we did do a small bid package for a propane generator to be located at the water treatment site. I know there's been a lot of questions on this, you know, even internally with the people that I work with there, but you really can't safely use diesel type generators at a water well site where you're setting it over the aquifer. There's just horror stories upon horror stories of what could happen there. And our firm is always done propane generators at a water treatment facility. And just because of all of the growth in the community and the, you know, future viability of the water system, I just don't think it's appropriate to use diesel there, and you cannot get a portable propane generator. So we did do the bid package. We did get bids in January 29th. We did it with a long-term award on it on purpose because of the lack of funds to actually fund this right now. So we have up to July 29th. Catherine, I think initially I told you June 29th, but it's really July 29th on the bid that we got. And we got a very good bid at $72,785.70. I know that's a lot of money. We're looking for possible grants or other options of how we're going to be able to award that, but that would be a great project to be able to get a generator at that site. We won't be able to have power outages without providing water. And they are renting a portable generator, but it's really not right to have diesel at that site. So it's an important project. So I just want to make sure you are all aware of that. Is there any questions on that? And then if not, the last project that's kind of a major project, like we're doing a lot of small things, is we're working on trying to get the 2 water tanks inspected. They haven't been inspected for quite some time, so the inspection needs to be updated such that we can get pricing for doing some painting of the water tanks. They are becoming slightly deteriorated. The old inspection, I believe only one of them was inspected. So we're going to try to work on how to inspect the tank that can't be fully filled because of the elevation that it was installed at. And there is some funds set aside already to do some painting, but I can't really come up with a quotation of what it cost until the tanks are re-inspected, because I think the old inspections are like, you know, I don't remember if it was 7 or 8 years old, but they're not real recent.
Brent, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Yes, sir.
Oh, you muted yourself instead of unmuting. There you go.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Do they, UT, that we call it UT, do you check the thickness on those tanks? Have an ultrasound thickness done on those?
I don't know that that's been done before, but it is certainly something that can be done. And typically it is done if there's a lot of, you know, aggressive rust present during the actual inspection. But the companies that come and do this work don't necessarily do that unless you ask them to do that especially. So it would be, if that's something that, you know, if there's a lot of aggressive, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I've dealt with a lot of tanks, and usually we always used to inspect those with UT because you could have some severe pitting going on inside and it actually rupture the tank.
Yep. Well, we can make sure that that's included.
I'm also curious, what is the duration of those tanks for water capacity? If they were full, how long would the town, is it hours or would it go a day without resupplying it?
Well, it depends on the time of the year, for sure. So I don't have that exact number, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, but it's not hours. It's, you know, you'd have a day and a half, 2 days, maybe in the summer, and in the winter, maybe a little longer. Not a long time.
That also would play a factor in on your generator, right?
Right. That's the reason. I mean, there's been issues before with power outages and, nothing that caused an issue, but it could have. And I just don't think it's worth finding out. And especially since that was such a good bid, it would be a very important project to get completed.
Yeah, I'm all in for buying a generator, but I'm just curious to how long, if somebody's got to react right away or something like that, how much time do you have?
Oh, as far as getting you don't have to, it's not hours. You have time. If you could get a portable propane generator, you would have time to hook it up. I mean, that's what's happening now. They're using a portable generator and there's time to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Catherine?
It used to be 2 days before we would start having severe water issues. I think it's down to, like Annalisa said, a day and a half now. It would depend on whether Hancock Lumber was in full operation with their plant and the watering of the logs, which is required. So it really depends on the time of the year. We had one summer that we were very low, no matter what we did. Everybody was low. It was a drought, but generally we're good. And that is, of course, the reasons why we brought in the bid for the propane generator. Once we started having issues late last year with CMP, which we had never had before, the power was never out for as long as it was on Peltoma Avenue since the ice storm. And so we felt we needed to make sure that we had a generator there. So everything's moving forward for proactive measures to be more progressive.
Any other questions for Annalise? Okay, thanks for coming in, Annalise, and we'll look
Sure.
forward to seeing you again next Tuesday.
Okay.
That
That's
ordinance
fine.
committee meeting.
That's fine. I that's what I do. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right, we're going to move on to community and economic development activities. Catherine, can we do, in the interest of time, it's already 8 o'clock, and I think we had a really valuable discussion, but we still have our entire agenda ahead of us. Can we do very brief updates on these items here?
Yes, and that is exactly what I do have.
Awesome.
They are brief updates on all of these items, which are continuing economic community development. So on the Main Street project, we had a really good stakeholders meeting on March 10th at 6 p.m. for a couple of hours. We had approximately 15 to 16 people going in and out. We had sent out over 70 invitations. Even though we were talking about the downtown area, we invited everyone who is a property owner along Main Street, even beyond the area of the MDOT project. We went all the way down to where we'd like to have the sidewalk put in. So there was a lot of good suggestions and information items that were requested. And so from that, we have done some phone calling and contacts with the state regarding broadband, which you'll hear about later on. Pasco from Haley Ward is working on some of the items that had come up at the meeting. He's gone on vacation and will be back and finish that. As you know, we had received just the existing conditions plan, but it was wonderful to receive something after all this time and to have the very good timetable. And so a number of questions have been sent to MDOT regarding items that came up at the meeting, including the signal lights and whether we can change things around and how we would do that. What would be the requirements to change the bump outs, because we were told at a staff DOT meeting that if we change them, we would lose parking spots, and we didn't understand that. We thought we would gain them. So there's a number of items that we've asked DOT. And we've also asked DOT for a copy of an agreement if they were to manage and take over the engineering inspections for the sidewalk and just simply put the whole sidewalk for the town into the DOT project. There's pros and cons. Pros obviously being that the whole project would be managed by one professional rather than having two involved and two contractors. Cons are that when you bid out state projects, often the costs are higher, so that may affect our project. We are looking around for additional money, which you'll see later on some agenda items, because the estimates that were put together by Chimbro, who assisted the town town and the estimates we put together for this sidewalk project are 5 years old now, and construction costs have changed. The costs for streetlights have changed. The costs for the electrical work will have changed. And so we are looking around for funds. That leads us into number 2, Main Street Sidewalk Project. We have contacted the Department of Economic Community Development, put a project file together, contacted the commissioner and left information regarding our amendment and how we really need a 2-year amendment to match up with the Maine Department of Transportation project road work. And in looking back at the grant that we had filed several years ago, we had put right in the grant that our project had to be done when the Main Street DOT project came through. And we did apologize because this has taken longer than we thought. And I've had projects delayed by the Maine Department of Transportation and making changes, everything, but not ever this long. But there are a lot of circumstances too. I spoke with on number 3, the town video commissioned by the Pittsfield Economic Expansion Corporation. And because of the changes that were suggested by some of the counselors there, this has delayed things a little bit. They're looking to get some video from some of the businesses that they can input, as well as make a change to the Pinnacle. And so Gary Jordan is estimating less than 30 days, but no drop dead date when I asked what that was. Planning board reviews have done very well with some projects in which the planning board has had 2 training sessions. One was last evening, and those went well. And doing this on Zoom allowed a lot of people to connect in for projects and everything. So that one's worked out really well. And other grant opportunities, we basically have tried to get the trees for the Project Canopy grants, which expire on 6/30/2021, and they're just as a deficit of good trees that will meet their requirements. So we may have to have that extended. I wanted to let you know that the Working Communities Challenge grant, which we worked with the city of Belfast and the entire Knox area, they did not get their project. There were 8 projects chosen of the 23. They had a really good project. So I'm going to send them a letter thanking them for putting us in their project, because the Sebasco Chamber just was so small they could not have done a project. We are looking at a whole variety of other grants, and I won't mention those right now because they'll be coming up in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go on to public hearings and old business, and there is none. So updates on council committees, finance committee.
Heather, I'll let you do that one since I still didn't have internet to be able to attend that meeting last week.
Okay. We basically, it was more of an update meeting. Catherine provided financial statements for some of the savings and trust accounts. We went over those. I don't recall having any large items that we went through. We did talk about a couple kind of things to look at ahead of time for small projects, one of which was evaluating the possibility of doing biweekly payroll, maybe splitting the tax payments up over the year. And there was a third one that's escaping me. Catherine, do you have notes there about what that third item was?
We're looking at municipal solar is another.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, of course. Yes, the one that I asked about. And the other item was we discussed looking at a municipal solar project. And that would probably be like a 1 to 2 year project to put together. And that was positively received by the committee. So we thought we would look into that some more. And Revision Energy, the name of the company that none of us could remember at the meeting, has merged. Bond's company, InSource Renewables, has merged with Revision Energy. So they would be the ones to check with for a local supplier. The original company that had approached was Pine Tree Solar. They're out of Herman. And they've done a couple municipal projects in the area already. So the next step for that would be to have somebody come and talk to the full council a little bit about what that would entail. And then the council as a whole could decide, if we wanted to go ahead and pursue this or not. But my guess is that a project like that would take quite a bit of staff time. So having our staffing be where it is right now with new people coming on board and trying to catch up with the financials and the computer systems problems that we've been having. I don't know if the timing is right to start this project now, but we could certainly get other information from other companies and then look at that as a council and then maybe ask one or two companies to come and give us a little bit broader information on that, maybe at the May or June meeting, and then start working on that. But it would definitely be something that we would need to build into our budget going forward if we wanted to do a project. So anyway, I think that was pretty much it. And there's an upcoming meeting. I didn't bring my full calendar with me. It should be like the second week in April. Does that sound right?
Yes.
I
Do you have your
believe it's
calendar?
April 13th.
Okay, yeah, so it'd be that second Tuesday after, it'd be the one after our first, yeah, the 6th, the 13th, yeah. So that would be that. And then ordinance committee hasn't met yet. We talked about earlier, we're going to be meeting with Annalise next week. We might have some other items on that. We don't have an agenda yet for the meeting, but the water sewer terms and conditions is certainly going to be one big chunk of something that we're going to be discussing. And then does the full council receive that agenda, Catherine, when it goes out for the ordinance committee?
No, they don't, but it's placed on the town website. All of the council committees' agendas are placed on the website with the listing for the meeting.
Okay.
Catherine, could we possibly get added to the list so that it can automatically send? Because it's really hard to find those agendas when you're looking at it on portable devices like tablets and cell phones, because it goes to a mobile version of the site.
All right, so if everybody wants to get every agenda, just let me know and then we'll just automatically do that.
I would like to opt into that, Catherine, please.
Yeah, why don't we just make that as a matter of practice, and that way you don't have to worry about sorting counselors in or out. It'll just be send all of the agendas to the entire council for all the meetings. That way people can join in as they see things that they're interested in knowing about. Does that sound good? Okay. And last thing would be recycling. Tim, recycling hasn't met yet, right?
Not yet. No report this evening.
Okay, all right, thank you. Board and committee updates by town councilors and manager. Catherine, I think you're the only one that would be having any updates here.
There are no updates here. I will note on the recycling that Tim, Donnie, and I'll need to get together because we were going to put together a listing of activities that could be promoted to the families to do for Arbor Day and for Earth Day. So we'll work on that. Things that would be done singly at somebody's home because we can't have yet the activities that we used to have in the past. And there are kind of family activities that can take place when there's good weather.
That'll bring us down to town manager report then.
All right, so that report was sent out this morning to everyone early. And so I'm just going to skim down through that because you have a copy of that. One, we will have the special election for the town council, which is coming up on the agenda. The date that is proposed is the regular June referendum date. We had to cut down the period of time for one of the steps, but that is something the council can do to match up so we don't end up with the election in July and then the June referendum date if that took place, or a June SAD 53 vote. So we would coordinate those together for a councilor. The term is through the end of the year, so it will be by the time they start, they'll have 5 or 6 months, depending on when they start. So number 2, code enforcement officer, building inspector, licensed plumbing inspector to retire. The The plans were announced last week to retire. And since then, we have been calling everywhere for interim coverage. Steve has indicated he won't leave us hanging. He would like to phase out, which is what our approach has been. I had contacted the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments, and the planning director, Joel Greenwood, who lives here in town, will cover the planning board meetings for site plan reviews and other items that will come up that are non-code related. He does this for both Madison and Skowhegan as the town planner, because they had to reduce their budgets and let those positions go. So KV Cog does do that. If it gets out of hand because we get so many projects, there would be a contractual arrangement that would be required. But right now, we don't perceive that. And so that would be fit within our dues. And the town had a wonderful project years ago that brought us over $1 million. So we've done really well with the little dues that we pay, are $5,000 a year. We do some activities, so I think that we will not be overusing it. The licensed plumbing inspector and land use item, Al Tempester, our alternate code officer, will conduct plumbing inspector work. He will do inspections. He will fill in for codes on Monday afternoons and Fridays. So he'll work with Steve for a little while to get used to the ordinances again. He hasn't been here for a while, but he was very nice and helpful. He can also do inspections on Saturday. And he can do limited land use. He is not certified in building, so we cannot give out building permits. So at this time, we're looking for interim coverage for the issuance of building permits. And since 2009, that has required the state certification of the Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code that we don't like very much. And so any town that's 4,000 or over, considered to be the larger towns, had to, that was adopted for them by the state. Multiple towns are searching for code enforcement officers. There were 6 listed on the MMA site. There are 6 more that we've been told about, and things have been going on for a while. So we got a couple ideas about using third-party inspectors from engineering firms. And so that will come to you in some form on April 6th. Until then, we think that we're covered. And then we have put an ad on the several locations, including the Municipal Job Bank at MMA, and nothing as of yet. And that was put on late last week after we did solidify that this was going to take place, because it's sort of going back and forth. Number 3 is Recreation 2021 Spring Sports registrations. The registrations will be accepted for spring sports through Friday, April 2nd. So this is really for the community to know. Those will be accepted until 5:00 p.m. The forms can be dropped off in person at the counter. They can put in the drop box out back if they don't want to come in the building, which many people do. They can mail it with their payments. They can call up, and then we can use a credit card to get their payment and then have it emailed to us. So we will help them in any way we can, as we have been doing since the pandemic came to light. The sports activities that are going to be offered are more than usual. T-ball for ages pre-K to K. There is suggested a travel farm league coach pitch, 1st to 2nd. And beginning 3rd, there will be a travel softball for 3rd through 6th grade, travel baseball, a player pitch, minors 3rd through 4th, and majors 5th through 6th, and spring outdoor basketball 2nd to 5th grades to take place in April, because the fields are usually unable to go on there. So that would be something that would be outside. The fee is $20 for residents and $25 for non-residents. The committee, once they collect up the registrations to see what we have, will be back to discuss their safety plans with the town council as required, and as they've been doing, just as a good communication prior to the activities starting up. So there'll be items to discuss, such as how the travel teams will be taking place, given due to the COVID regulations and what's going on. And the towns to be covered under non-resident will need to be discussed too. Number 4 is new funding for the airport. We have received, or will receive, or have encumbered, I will say, to be received, $13,000 for limited activities at the airport. Those activities include operations personnel, cleaning, sanitation, janitorial services, combating the spread of pathogens, and debt service payments. So those are the categories. We believe items that we have would fit under operations, and we will verify that. A state and federal SF 424 form was required by the federal government. We got just a few days to do it, so we did it. And then if the funds are going to be accepted, the council would make that decision at an upcoming meeting once we find out what's going on. Number 5, application for federal grant registration. This is a week process here of calling in and working on your SAM account, which is supposed to be a very easy process to put everything together and consolidate everything. However, because we have so much federal funding that comes, I did start early, got that done, and then was told there's going to be a new program set up that we'll have to mitigate to in the future. So that's going to be fun. But at least we're moving forward on that, and we did receive confirmation. Number 6, which you'll see at your next council meeting, is the Spirit of America 2021. It's the time of the year, so you pick a volunteer who has had an impact on the community and made a difference. The main Spirit of America Award is given in each community that signed up for the program to recognize volunteerism. We have a list in the office that we've kept that you've worked on before, made changes to, added people to, and then chose your recipient for the award. So that list will be updated when you, if you supply any names for that. So I'm going to send that to you after this meeting. So you'll get that tomorrow. Look over that list and see if there's anyone you want to add to it and some background information or where I can get that. And then we'll have that as a handout for the town council meeting coming up on April 6th. So you'll have plenty of time to look that over. You got some ideas. And then we would like to discuss having a ceremony later on in the year. This is something that families and, relatives come to, friends. We were unable to recognize Paul Bertrand in a community setting last year because he was the 2020 recipient chosen, and then the pandemic arrived. So we'd like to do both 2020 and 2021 later on in the year when hopefully we can get together, or we'll do some sort of platform. I'm not going to go over the updated and or continuing items. I put
Catherine, excuse me for 1 second. I'm sorry. I just had a question about the last item that you discussed. Does it have to be an individual or can it be a group?
It can be a group. We have had projects and groups that are authorized under the Maine and the U.S. program. We did have a group in which we recognized the community food bank, and so that can be done. Some towns recognize their fire department because they have volunteers or groups of citizens that work with food banks and things like that. So yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's updates on the financial systems and how we're nearly reconciled, which is very good. End of the year processes are going along well. The safety incentive program is later on the agenda. Upcoming meetings. I did want to mention and thank Donnie Shute as well as the Public Works Department for all the work that was done on the airport brush and tree cutting. Donnie organized all that, took the GPS readings, sent them to the state so that we could get our federal form updated so that we were in compliance without obstructions in those areas, which then makes us eligible for a grant opportunity and use of federal funding for the May 1st filing. So this got done in time. People who have been on the council for a long time recognize that it's very hard to find, a period of time that you can do cutting in which the ground is solidly frozen in that swamp with the strange weather that we've been having. And then I did give you a list of all the intergovernmental meetings because that was mentioned to do that last year. So I listed out the major ones there. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. First item that I have is order 21-05, and we also have resolution 21-19. Just as we usually do orders first and then resolutions, but I feel like we should do resolution 21-19 first. That would be the acceptance of the resignation of one of our counselors, which would then open a position on a committee, which we would fill with the following order. So if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to waive the rules and take them in that order, just so it makes chronological sense. Is there anybody opposed to waiving the rules and taking items out of order this evening? Okay, thank you. So Catherine, we'll do resolution 21-19 first.
Very good. Resolution 21-19, resolved that the town council accept the resignation of Deborah A. Billings as an at-large town council with regret, with such resignation effective immediately.
I'm gonna look for a motion.
Move we adopt resolution 21-19.
I'll need a second.
Second,
Thank you. All right, counselors, I did receive a letter of resignation from Counselor Billings. She sent me a letter that she wanted read. She says, Mayor Donahue and Pittsfield Town Councilors, as of today, March 2nd, 2021, I have resigned my seat on the town council. I know making this decision creates another empty seat for the council, and for that I am truly sorry. Unfortunately, some recently discovered issues have arisen, making it impossible for me to complete my final year. Being a counselor is hard work, requiring selflessness and dedication, with desire to do what is best for the entire community as a whole. This can only happen when the council speaks the truth with one voice. Thank you to all those citizens who elected me. I hope I've done what you've asked. Respectfully, Deborah Billings. And she did date this letter March 2nd, but we did not receive it in time to put it on the agenda for our last meeting. So it was slated for tonight's agenda, which is why we have it before us this evening. I don't know if there's any discussion on that.
I've got just a couple comments. I haven't called Deb to wish her well, but I'm going to wish her well tonight. I hate to accept it because she works, whether you agree with Deb or not, she works her rear end off to try and make sure that things are done in a correct manner. She puts everything she's got into it, and it's very time consuming. I know I'm on my 24th year here, believe me. It's very time consuming to do any of this stuff. And, you know, I wish Deb well in the future. She did very hard. She did a lot of digging and a lot of work, and she always came prepared. And I wish her nothing but luck in the future. And sad, it's too bad. I hate to see anybody get done, but I understand things happen in life, and I wish her well.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else have anything to say? I just want to echo Tim's sentiments. I wish Deborah well. She certainly does have a passion for serving the town. She served the town in many different capacities other than being counselor. And she still has some projects that she wants to work on. So some of those projects may come to fruition, and we may see her here before the council again, telling us about those projects. So we certainly wish Deborah well, and with regrets, we received this letter of resignation. All those in favor of approving resolution 21-19, please say aye. And Amanda, if you're gonna vote on resolutions, can you put your video on?
I can put it on just to do a quick yes, and then I have to shut it off or I lose the meeting.
Sure, let's do that. Okay, so all those in favor of passing resolution 21-19, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that will pass. All right, so we'll go back up to order 21-05.
Order 21-05, order that the mayor appoint from among the council as a finance committee member to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of a town council, with such appointment expiring December 31st, 2021.
And I'll look for a motion to start discussion on this, counselors.
We adopt order 21-05.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, so Deborah's resignation does open up a committee spot on the finance committee. I did check with a couple counselors and see if they would want to serve on this committee. Jason agreed to serve on this committee. Is there anyone else that would like to serve on this committee that we should vote on one of two names, or is any other nominations?
Come
I
on,
think
Brett,
you-
take it from me.
I think if Jason wants to do it, I thank you, Jason, and good fresh set of eyeballs is a good thing.
We'll see.
All right, so the nomination is for Jason to serve on in that position. All those in favor of Jason serving on the Finance Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that will pass. So Jason, our next meeting is, what do we decide, the 6th, the 13th of April?
Yep.
All right, we're going to move on to resolution 21-20.
Resolution 21-20, resolve that the town council declare council seat at large vacant and call a special election for councillor at large on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021.
Look for a motion.
I'd like to move we adopt resolution 21-20.
Thank you, Pete. Can I
Second.
hear a second, Tim? Thank you. All right, this is kind of a housekeeping item. We have an empty seat. We need to declare it open so that we can have an election. Does anybody have any discussion on this? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on this.
Aye.
I'm just waiting for Amanda. There she is. I was waiting
Yeah.
for Amanda to pop back up. All those in favor of resolution 21-20, declaring the seat open for at-large counselor for election on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that will pass. And then we move on to 2021. 21-21.
Resolution 21-21, resolve that the town council approve that nomination papers for councillor at large be made available on Thursday, March 25th, 2021, and that the filing deadline for such nomination papers will be Friday, April 23rd, 2021 by 5:00 p.m.
Move we adopt resolution 21-21.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Another housekeeping item, we have an opening, we gotta have nomination papers. Any discussion on this, counselors? The timelines are set by statute, so. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and vote on resolution 21-21. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that will pass. Resolution 21-22.
Resolution 21-22. Town council conduct all town council meetings in person effective April 6, 2021.
I'll look for a motion, counselors.
I'd like to move we adopt resolution 21-22.
I'll look for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, counselors, this item was requested by Jason to be put on the agenda. Do you want to speak to this, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it seemed like maybe the majority of the town council wanted to be in person, and I think we were more or less meeting most of the guidelines, if not all of them, and we're in a green status for our area. So I was just thinking in person would be a lot more convenient, and I don't know, it just seemed like the majority of the people wanted to do that. So I figured if we voted on it, then we could possibly do that. So that's really all I had to say about it.
Okay. Donnie, you've been waiting patiently all of this time. So we'll have you weigh in, please.
thought that's why you were here.
Well, it's one of those things that just looking at the last update from our governor and some of the guidelines that are going on, and sometimes it comes out of her office and what the CDC say are two different things. So trying to get through the muddle of the whole deal is sometimes kind of tough. One of the things I think that we need to look at is the timing right now. Jason's correct. It is in the green for Somerset County. But it isn't going to take too much for it to go the other way. Traditionally, when we have warming and cooling sessions here in the next week or two, going from 60 degrees to 0 with a wind chill is probably is going to be the toughest time in the next few weeks. My heart and my head are in two different places. My heart tells me that let's get on with business and get rid of some of this mass things and get back to opening things up. But my head tells me different. I'd like to see us at least for another month. And one of the issues that you're going to find too is you're going to have guest speakers and people come in. And one of them was like tonight with Annalise. She travels across the state. You have people coming in and out of the building. Trying to keep that building infection free is probably the biggest thing with me. As far as the employees, we've got people that are access employees that access that building every day. My feeling is I'd like to see us put it off for another 30 days if we could. I think we're getting over the hump. I was told this morning that we're gonna have another 200,000 doses of vaccine in the state in the next couple of weeks. Get some people vaccinated, get some more people vaccinated in the community. And I think probably I would say with very good confidence that probably in May, things are going to change. I think we can do a lot more things in person. I think we can do a lot of other activities. We can lessen them up a little bit, but I think usually trying February, March are the 2 months that traditionally that the normal influenza tends to spread. We see the ups and downs, they peak, and then they seem to go down to a low level. And then lo and behold, the end of March and the 1st of April, we have a huge influx of infection of the regular influenza. And if that holds true with history, I think probably that's what's going to happen with this thing. I don't think that we're out of the water, but it's totally up to you guys. You guys make the rules. That's my professional opinion. I know this Zoom stinks. I can tell tonight we've had technical difficulties. I blacked in and out. The audio sometimes is bad, and it's probably not the best way to be doing business. But I think if we could hold off for another 30 days, I think we'll have a different outcome. I just think that we've come too far, too fast just to say, okay, it's going to be 52 degrees tomorrow, maybe 60 degrees Monday, Tuesday next week, and then jump back into this thing and find out a bunch of people sick. We've done very well as a community. We've done very well as employees not having infections, and as well as a lot of you as counselors haven't been sick. So I'd like to keep it that way.
Thanks, Donnie. Amanda, your hand is up. Can you put your video on?
I can. I don't know how long my voice will stay on if I do that.
Well, if we lose you, we'll wait for you to reconnect.
So I'd just like to weigh in on this. I think that an important part of this resolution should be that those who feel uncomfortable coming to the meetings in person should be allowed to continue conducting virtual sessions. I don't think that this resolution should direct the council members that have to be here if they feel uncomfortable being here. The other thing that I think that we need to discuss it, and it's something that Donnie has brought up, and it's something that is brought up in the State House as well, is that when people are traveling around the State House, we can't really do anything about that because we're all legislators meeting in the same space from all over the state because of how we represent things. We were in there in the Civic Center with our face coverings on, having our 6 feet distancing last week for 2 very long days. And it was able to be conducted successfully. And so if you're concerned about like having a presentation that we had like from Annalise, there's nothing that says that we can't ask them to do those presentations remotely. We have this beautiful brand new TV sitting in here that we can easily see their faces on. And I think that that would address that concern. As for the staff in the building, I agree that we need to protect them, but they are not here when we are meeting. And we can direct counselors to not go upstairs, that they'd have to come directly to the council chambers. There's ways to ensure that we're staying safe, but being able to meet in person is the best way to be able to do business. I can tell you that we were able to have a lot more good discussions last week than we've ever been able to have over Zoom, because we were face to face. And that really changes the dynamic and allows us to do business much better. I know that one of the concerns is the face covering concerns, but I have, I believe, addressed those concerns by showing you that the CDC and the governor's office and leadership at the State House has all agreed that there are specific face coverings that are and are not approved. Mine happens to be an approved one, and it is actually pictured in the rules, the joint rules that we have to follow when we're in the State House. And I wear it there every Tuesday and Thursday. I wore it all week last week while we were in session in person. And so I would hope that that would alleviate that roadblock, given that it's now an approved. We have a list of approved alternative face coverings when medically you cannot wear a face mask. So that is my contribution to this discussion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Catherine, have we gotten anything from the governor's office or the state CDC for recommendations for municipalities, whether it be town council or city council or selectman form of government? Is there anything that's come down from Augusta, from either one of those entities to you?
There have been no changes that have come down from Augusta regarding any council meetings. The executive order that came through dealt with a variety of items, mostly opening up the state for tourism and for what appears to be, from reading this, large stores and reception areas so that more people could be there. Those items don't change anything for the community. For the council chambers, we still have the same requirements. So no, nothing has been mentioned about council meetings, and Donnie can weigh in on this. I haven't seen anything.
No, I haven't seen anything. And again, it's one of those things that they try to push from the state to the CDC and the CDC to the local health offices to try to determine what's best for each individual situations. I know that a couple of town meetings occurred. One was actually in Canaan this weekend. They allowed 50 people in to do their annual town meeting, and they figured that out per square footage of how many people could be there. And again, one of the things that you got to remember is you're the one that makes the rules. I have a professional opinion. I'm going just by what I'm reading and what I'm seeing from the CDC. At the end of the day, you guys are going to be the ones that are going to wear this thing. So if you guys want to meet, they still recommend even people vaccination, but still wearing masks and still doing the 6 feet distancing. That's the required recommendation at this point. And if you guys decide as a council that you want to have these in person, and if somebody has some health issues and decides that they want to stay home and Zoom this, that's their, I guess that's a way to look at it. But again, one of the things, I've always been the person that sets the example. So I like to set the example, and I would just hate to see us cross over a threshold and decide that we're going to make that decision and then people end up sick. But it is what it is. The infection rate is kind of stable. We've had a few extra ones today, and I think 2 deaths today. It's totally up to the council. You're the ones that are going to ultimately meet. Your guys' health is the ones at stake. You're going in and out. If you got presenters in and out, you got employees in and out. So it's one of those things that it's a tough decision. And if it was like I said, everybody has an opinion. And my opinion is I'd like to see us go another 30 days contactless. But if you're adamant about meeting and that you feel impassioned that your constituents deem that you need to be in that council chambers to have that meeting, then if it's that important to you, then I guess then one of the things you'll have to do is reap the consequence if somebody gets sick or something happens. It's not going to come back on me. I will tell you that. It will not come back on me.
I will tell you, and it's kind of a little monologue here. Tim, the person, Tim, the individual, I don't like these masks. I don't necessarily, because I'm not real comfortable with them. I got some issues personally with some of the constitutionality of some of this stuff. And the government's too big for its britches to start with. And it seems like it's getting more and more so all the time. But as Tim, the counselor, you know, I don't agree with Governor Mills on everything she does. I don't agree with some of her people that she's put in place, but she's the governor of the state of Maine. The people put her in there. And I'm supposed to be, as Tim, the counselor, we're supposed to obey all federal, state statutes, and federal law supersedes state law and state law supersedes local law. And I understand that we're now green, but so part of me, the part of me that says, yeah, this stuff's a pain in the rear end and I'd like to get rid of it, is because I don't like doing Zoom meetings. I'm not computer literate, but if computer was education, I'm about 4th grade here, okay? So I don't like them. I mean, I don't like doing Zoom meetings, but on the other hand, I'm not going to ignore the fact that one of the things I get concerned about, I got my COVID shots, is I'm also afraid that, we don't want people to get sick. I don't want our town manager to get sick. I don't want our town employees to get sick. And you can't ignore, I mean, it's nice to be able to say we're over it. And I hope we are, I really do. And I understand how people feel about this. It's a very touchy subject, and however people vote is how they vote. I understand their concerns, and I don't hold it against them at all. But, we had our fire chief got deathly ill because of this. And I don't think we can ignore those sorts of things. So Tim, the counselor, is going to do what is prudent and what is best as far as I'm concerned. So if they're willing to put it off for 30 days, I'll vote for that. If not, if we have to make a decision tonight, based on what we have for information right now, I'm going to vote against it. I know I'm in the minority and I understand that. And I do not hold it against anybody that wants to do it the other way, but I don't want to see anybody get sick. And there's no guarantee even after 30 days, it won't get sick, but we would have a lot better handle on where we're at that time. So that's how I feel about the whole thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Jason?
Yeah, just, going in person doesn't necessarily mean, we're obviously going to still be masked. We'll still be, those chambers are pretty big. We can be 6 feet. We could probably be 15 feet apart. No problem down there. I don't think you're going to see a huge rush of residents come down there, and there's not going to be 50 people down there. Even at a heated discussion, there's not that many people down there. So I don't think you're going to see all of that. I always mask. I'll be masked down there. I didn't necessarily put that we needed to be in person April 6th. I just wanted to bring up the discussion and ask the question, and whether it's April 6th or April, we skip one of those, so we go to April 20th after that. That's that's over your 30 days right there, Donnie. So
yeah, and one of the things you got to understand is next week, the federal funding could be released, and this is one of those areas that I feel very strongly against, because once they, if we got a problem, government throwing money at it doesn't make it go away. But a week from now, if we got some federal funding in the state, all of a sudden next week, the governor could make a decision to open up even more of the state, which would alleviate and take a lot more of them restrictions off. So that's my opinion. Could it change after April 6th? It very well could, because things are starting to snowball in that direction. I will tell you, there is a lot of pressure, and probably Amanda can can attest to this. There's a lot of pressure to get things back to normal. And I think it's good for everybody. Mental health wise, I think it's a good thing for everybody. And the other thing is, this is very impersonable. I'm not this type of guy. I want to see the expressions on your face. I like to see when I go in and Amanda smile when she's sitting over there and at her seat. So it's a tough thing that we got to do. But again, this could be 2 weeks. The governor could loosen things up. I know there's a lot of pressure on the state level to get things back to normal, and it may just be that. It may be one more meeting. Who knows?
So, I mean, if we, instead of saying April 6th, that, like I said, the April 20th, that's over 30 days. That meets Donnie's recommendation. That gives us one more, it gives us one more Zoom meeting that we have to attend, and maybe we vote on it then. I don't know. I don't know what everybody's thinking, I guess.
I'd be willing to, if you guys are willing to table that till the meeting of April 20th, we can bring it up again, but that's up to the council members. I could make that recommendation, but it's up to you guys, but that's not that far away. So
Preferably, if we could, I'd be willing, as somebody who wants to be in person, that's why I'm in the town hall right now. I'd be willing to not table it because I don't want to do that. I am tired of this not having a deadline thing out there, but to make a motion to amend this resolution that we would be in person effective April 20th, 2021. That gives the 30 days that Donnie wants, but allows us to say, this is the day we're going to be in. It gives the town time to do whatever they need to do for protocols, knowing that that's when we're coming back. But I don't want to leave this open-ended. I really don't like that idea.
well, the only problem I have with that is the fact that hopefully, and all trends are pointing towards it's going to get better. But if it takes a turn for the worse, then where are you at?
Well, and you guys can discuss that. You can deal with it at that same time. And I think that's more than fair. I think just as long as everybody realizes that on the 20th, that it's still with precautions, unless otherwise stated by the governor or the CDC.
If you,
I agree with that. What we do is, if God forbid we saw another spike, which I don't anticipate us
I don't
seeing
either.
because the numbers are continuously going down. It's why we're opening the state back up. What I'm seeing at the state level is, this is the trend. We're going to continue to open up. We're going to continue to see these restrictions ease as we get more vaccinations in. And to say now that we have a deadline, we're going to be in person April 20th. And if something were to happen and we saw like 100 cases in Pittsfield, again, I don't see this happening, then we revisit it. Obviously, if we have a huge outbreak in our town, we don't want to be putting any of our lives at risk. But I'm not talking about meeting in person without face coverings. I don't think that's,
Right.
according to Jason as well, that's not something that
No.
we're talking about. We're not saying let's meet in person with no restrictions. We're saying let's keep our social distancing, which is actually the #1 way to stop the spread, have the approved face coverings, and just get back in here and be able to do this in a much more productive manner.
And anybody that's not, anyone that's not comfortable, like Amanda said, we have that huge TV down there. Like, say, if Tim or the manager is upstairs, we can easily see them and hear them. And anybody that isn't comfortable, just stay Zoom.
So
Yeah.
before we address Amanda's potential amendment to this, I'd like to have Pete and Brent weigh in, just so we can have a full discussion before talking about any amendments or anything. Do you want to go first, Pete?
Well, obviously, I was never in agreement with the Zoom meeting, so I would absolutely like to go back to in person. And I do think that if we amend it, the amendment should include people that want to continue to Zoom, that they'd be allowed to Zoom, because there's no reason why they shouldn't if they don't feel comfortable being in person.
I don't think that's an issue so much because the governor's order allows municipalities to operate via this anyway until the emergency order is lifted. So I don't think that that is something that we specifically need to address in the resolution. Would that be correct, Catherine? We don't have to spell that out.
That is correct, because the
Okay.
governor's executive order would supersede any decision that you made.
And if we did vote to meet in person again, we don't need to specify that we would be following all the CDC guidelines, or do we? Because personally, I feel like by going back to in-person meetings, if nothing has changed, the guidance we've gotten from Donnie hasn't changed. He hasn't received anything that he made that original guidance on. To me, nothing has changed, even though the governor's opened up for businesses more. And I think that's more of an economic pressure on the DECD and the businesses in the state than the science saying that that's what we should be doing. But personally, I haven't seen any guidance change specifically from the state, either to Donnie or through Donnie, as far as how our board should be operating. But Brent, did you want to weigh in on the discussion here?
Jamie,
Yep. I hear you
Yep.
now.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm okay with meeting in person.
Okay. So I guess I have a couple more things. One thing, aside from the fact that the governor's orders hasn't changed either to the health officer in order to have him change his perspective, or the advice that he gave us in the previous letter when we did go to Zoom. We have a holiday coming up on April 4th. Easter's coming up in just a couple weeks. It's a period of time that people are going to be gathering either with or without their families, or with friends or small groups. And traditionally, we've seen from Thanksgiving and from Christmas and New Year's that within 2 weeks or so after the type of holidays that would have events like that, we see a spike in cases. And so I'm kind of the mindset of Donnie, in that I would rather revisit this on the 20th, not vote to have it take effect the 20th, but look at what is actually happening between the 4th and the 20th, between those 2 weeks after the holiday, and revisit it then. Other things that are going to be happening in that 30-day period of time, we have 1 to 2 more age groups that are going to be available or eligible for vaccinations. A lot of the staff don't even have the ability to get vaccinated yet. Most of the people on this council don't have the ability to get vaccinated yet. And a lot of the actual staff, not only in the administrative office, but through the town, don't have the ability to get vaccinated. And if we wait another month or so, we can open up another round of vaccinations. And as Donnie said, the supply of vaccine coming to the state is increasing on a weekly basis. So vaccinations are becoming easier to come by, and more people are becoming eligible to actually have the vaccines. Some concerning things in that, if we talk about the case load that we've been seeing, obviously from the awful situation we were in at the end of December, beginning of January, through the month of January, our case counts have come down, but they're not still dropping. They've plateaued right around 150 to 200 cases on average per week. And this particular week, it's actually gone up over an average of 10 cases a day more than it was last week. So we might actually be heading into that period of time that Donnie was talking about, where you get into late March and early April, traditional flu increases. We might actually be seeing the very beginning of that, who knows? But there is that trend that's happening now. And even at UMaine, they're experiencing an increase in positivity on their campus through students. And most of those cases are in students in their 20s. So it's not just the elderly people that we've been told that we need to worry about that have been the target audience for a lot of the precautions. it's younger people now as well. And with the new variants, we don't know how effective the vaccines are going to be. So even if you get a vaccine, you still have to do all of the protective things, wear the mask, wash your hands, keep social distance, even though you've been vaccinated. So personally, I would rather see us follow the guidance of the state that's still in place for us. I'd rather see us follow the science and take a very cautionary approach to this. I don't think that being on Zoom is precluding people from participating in our meetings. And I would cite evidence of the fact that there were 16 people on the call for the Main Street project last week. Obviously, people can participate in meetings via Zoom. Our planning board meeting last night, I lost track of how many people were on there, but it was a good, well, there's at least 6 or 7 members or more of the actual planning board, plus Joel, myself, and there was a couple other interested parties there. So there's at least 10 or 12 on that meeting. So it's not just that people can't access our meetings. We apparently just are not as interesting as a sidewalk. So we'll leave it at that. Amanda, do you want to readdress and make an amendment, or would anybody else make amendment or more discussion on this item?
I'd like to propose an amendment as a, to, instead of have this effective April 6th, which would be my preferred date, but given what Donnie has requested for 30 days, I would like to amend this to state April 20th, 2021 is when we would begin in person.
I would second that.
Okay, counselors, all those in favor of approving the amendment to accepting the amendment to resolution 21-22, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay?
Nay. So we'll do a roll call. Tim,
Nay?
Pete,
Aye.
Amanda,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and Brent.
Aye.
I didn't catch it.
Aye.
Aye, okay. I just got the last half of it, and I am going to vote nay. All right, so the amendment is added to the resolution from a vote of 4 to 2. So we have an amended resolution that will read, resolve the town council conduct all council meetings in person effective April 20th, 2021. Counselors, discussion on the amended resolution.
I just had a question. I got a question. Catherine, if this amended version passes, can you Zoom or do you have to be down in the council chambers in person?
I'm required under the town charter to be at the meeting, which means at the council chambers. I already worked this out.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Catherine, you had a comment as well.
Yes, I didn't want to take up much of your time. It was a counselor discussion, obviously. I would just like to know my support for Donnie's recommendation that we continue on my professional opinion from looking at everything and dealing with this day after day and listening to people who are scared to come to work and dealing with trying to keep the employees safe. At this point, hardly any employees except for public safety have been able to get the vaccine. And then after their age group comes up in the upcoming weeks, and perhaps that will be moved up, there then needs to be a second dose. So that takes us basically into May. So I was going to request that we just go back to the in-person meetings with the May 4th meeting. The only reason why I listed April 6th on the item is not because it's my birthday, but because Jason had mentioned the governor's executive order, which goes into effect on March 26th. And so the next council meeting after that, because of our 3-week period, was April 6th. So that's the only reason why I put that there. And I felt there should be a definite point. But at this point, hardly anyone has been able to get the vaccine. The employees are worried, not only about myself, but also worried that if I keep going up to what's called a cohort or a pod and I get this, they're going to get it, because obviously masks don't work, because I am very particular about this due to my immune system and the immune system of most of the employees in the town office. And I'm not speaking out of turn or indicating what type of medical issues have, but we have a staff that overall has a lot of medical issues. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And these are employees that are worried, and I hear about this every day, whether they're in the office or not. So we try to be extremely careful. And they've been concerned all along and wanted me not to go to the meetings, but I did agree that we needed to get through the budget process and have the budget done, because if something went wrong, we would have a legal issue with our budget. And so that's why we didn't start the Zoom meetings earlier. That was a question that Jason had. Why didn't, if this was a concern, why didn't we do it sooner? And it was to make sure that we did not have any legal issues with our budget, because that is extremely important. So thank you for letting me have, share my opinion. But Donnie, I know, is right on top of this. And, I know it's a difficult issue. And certainly I do not like to write code, run around to all the computers and do all of this. Maybe I'll be the computer tech for the office in the future here. Thank you.
Heather, if I could really quickly, I'd like to address one of Catherine's concerns. And I believe that governor's emergency order allowing for those virtual things, that you would not be required to be down in the room, because that would supersede anything else, given that we are still in a current state of emergency. I am sure that the rest of us counselors would also agree to allow you to be up in your office so that you are protected. I can't see anywhere where we or anybody would come after you for not being down in the chambers, because it doesn't say that you have to physically be in the meeting. It says you have to be in the meeting. And in the world that we live in, being in a meeting is both physical and virtual. So I do not believe that you should be forced to be down in the chambers if you are uncomfortable being in the chambers. You should be upstairs in your office where you can run the meeting from there. And then if, God forbid, there's a technical issue, you're still in the building, but you're protected and in your room.
Thank you. If that's something that you want to, that we place in the record, that would be fine. So there wouldn't be any issues later on. The charter was written back in the 70s. No one had any anticipation of anything like this. And even in the 80s and 90s, we would never have thought things would be like this. But that may be of comfort to the town employees. I also didn't mention that, just to not take up your time, but both the mayor and the deputy mayor had expressed concern to me and asked me to talk to the town attorney, and their recommendation certainly is that we keep on with the Zoom meetings, just because of what's taking place and the fact that they have seen a number of towns, because they deal with problems. So they have had towns call about being shut down for a period of time, which has disrupted business. And in our community, with the few employees that we do have, if 2 or 3 are out because they're ill, whether it be the flu or this, it would be, a serious item for workflow and affect the customer service of the citizens who, expect us to be here and have the office open each day. So that was an item that I wanted to mention. That's been our concern, in that we we were lucky. We almost had to be quarantined, but luckily things worked out right. And Bernard was extremely cautious with all of us. And so we did appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Catherine, for the record then, should we be amending this resolve again? I'm sorry to have to do that, but to state that in that amendment, you should be allowed to be in your office, or can we just, because it's on record as a recording and a public thing, saying that I'm sure every one of us would vote that you would be able to stay in your office during this?
We could just put a comment and underneath.
Put a comment. Okay, great.
I will say in my own household, I was not real keen about taking the COVID-19 shot, but I took both of them and I just got my second one because I've got a family member that the doctor told her that if she got it, she probably would not make it because she's got lung issues. So because I deal with people that are coming in off the street, you know, you never know. So I did it just to protect them as much as possible. So that's why, you know, again, like I said before, I understand this is a very complicated, tough issue it's tough for me personally. There's part of me that absolutely hates it, and there's part of me that understands what we got to do. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So I understand where people are coming from, okay?
I just want to go on the record as strongly against the motion in front of us. I don't think it's a decision that we need to make right now. We have not impeded the work of the council at all by being in Zoom meetings. We have been able to have a quorum for our meetings with the exception of one because we didn't have a counselor on video. And that was the very first meeting. And we were able to put those business items over to the next meeting without interruption. I don't feel like our council work has been greatly affected by this. I feel like we have still been able to achieve the objectives set before us throughout our agendas. All counselors have been able to participate in the meeting. They have been offered the information to participate in the meetings. They've been offered place to participate in the meetings, as well as the technology to participate in the meetings. So at no time has a counselor been impeded of participating in these meetings by the fact that we are via Zoom. Catherine has gone absolutely out of her way to, I will say, become a master of the Zoom. And this is a huge new skill set for her, as well as many other people, including other committee people that are running meetings. It's something that we requested of her specifically to use more technology. Little did we know that this is what we were going to have to do anyway. And I think we've all learned new skills doing this. And obviously, like tonight, there's always some tinkering that needs to happen with technology. That's just the way it is. It's part of our life. It's not going to be leaving anytime soon. So Tim, you got to get used to it. Computers are here to stay. And it's obviously, and Jason, I'm just going to call you out. You said something completely wrong earlier. It's not the majority of the council that wants us to go back to normal. It's all of us. We all want things to get back to normal. And part of being able to get back to normal is to be patient and wait for these things to play out and make sure that we are not heading back into something that we are not going to be able to control. And I think that we just need to be extremely cautious right now. And I would feel much more comfortable if we wait and see what the world looks like on April 20th. And I would be perfectly happy to readdress this and look at the beginning of May in order to start having our meetings in person again. I'd feel much more comfortable with that than right now saying, oh, we're going to start on April 20th when we have no idea what's going to be ahead of us after that holiday. And you're also looking at college break in that period of time. So I think that we need to be a little more prudent. I think we need to look at the science of things and not be, follow your head on this and not your heart about what your wants and wishes are. It's still a matter of this pandemic is in full swing. It's still around us, and we need to be doing everything we can to protect ourselves, to protect our neighbors and our employees. And as counselors in this town, we have an obligation to protect the operations of the town. And for me, that means voting no on this resolution, because I think we need to wait it out a little bit longer.
Did you really honestly mean that this technology is here to stay?
I'm sorry, Tim, but yes, it is.
Did you really mean that this technology is here to stay?
Yeah, it
No wonder
is.
alcoholism is so prevalent in this state, I'll tell you. Okay, I agree. I understand where you're coming from. Duly noted.
All right, anybody else have discussion before we vote on the amended resolution? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Amanda, can you turn your video back on for a minute? All right, so our amended resolution reads, resolve the town council conducts all town council meetings in person effective April 20th, 2021, as amended. And again, just for the record, I will state that this does not require all counselors or the town manager to be present in the council chambers if they don't feel comfortable doing that. And it will also include, this is just a note, this isn't part of the resolution. That's just like the after note part. And it will also include all of the recommended CDC guidelines for face masking and social distancing, as long as they stay in effect according to the governor's executive orders for emergency operations. So I think that covers all the bases of things that we had discussed. So we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of adopting the amended resolution, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Okay,
Nay. All right, so we're going to do a roll call because I did not hear what everybody voted, and I know there was at least one nay in there. I'm going to go left to right across my screen. Jason,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Brent,
Aye.
Tim,
okay,
Amanda,
Aye.
and I will vote nay. That amendment passes. Amended resolution passes 4-2. Our next item is resolution 21-23.
Resolution 21-23, resolved that the town council approve the request for proposals for mowing of departments in Andover, option 1, and parks and municipal properties, option 2, for 2021, and authorize the town manager and public works foreman to seek bids.
I'd like to move we adopt resolution 21-23.
I'll
second.
second that.
Thank you, Tim.
Amanda
All right,
seconded it.
counselors, discussion about the mowing bids. This is just if we want to put bids out, seeking bids.
I don't have any discussion around that, but I just want to let you know that my battery is very quickly dying because I have to keep turning on my camera. So if you lose me, it's because I've died.
Okay,
I got some questions on that.
okay, Brent.
A couple of things. Most of the time in there, you're referring to cutting the grass when it's 5 inches or so, right? Is that how you determine when they come mow the lawns, everything? When the grass is 5 inches?
Inch requirement, which has not been an issue with our last contractors, yes.
So it doesn't, do they get paid for so much a month, or are they getting paid by each mowing?
There would be a lump sum bid, and then that lump sum bid by the contract and by the bid specs would be divided up into equal payments over the term, with any remainder paid in the last payment. Usually there's a few dollars left for the last payment, more than the regular payments during the year. Generally, the individuals want to get paid every 2 weeks.
So it's not by the number of times they mow then? It's a
Correct.
set- Yeah. So in a summer like we had last summer when there was a drought, you probably went anywhere from to a month to 6 weeks sometimes without even mowing your lawn.
Mhm. And then sometimes when
And
there's never ending grass, you know, it's whether whatever your weather is like.
Right.
Kind of like our plowing contract. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a flat bid amount, and sometimes, you know, you get hammered storm after storm, and other times there's not much to do. So that's one of
is there
those.
anything preventing us from making that bid per mowing? Per mow? Like if the $5,000 to mow the lawn and they do it once a month or 6 times a month, they get $5,000 every time they mow the lawn?
We would, the only thing I can think of is that the staff would have to track all that. We can make a spreadsheet so that they go out and check that. The mowings are in different locations, so some of them are in far outside, so different department heads are in charge of the area, so we would have to get the information from them or have one person go around to check and see what is transpired.
It sounds very time consuming to send someone around to measure the grass, to see if we have to call them, to have them cut it. You know, it's the spaces are all really spread out. All the wellheads, the buildings, the airport, and I just,
We could always address it too when we get bids back.
Oh, okay.
Just because we're voting for this tonight doesn't mean we're picking a bid or paying a price.
This is true.
Yeah, the other thing I've got on that, which is on the mowing, is on the airport one, on part 2 there. I think it may be a typo, but the package says 2020 on it instead of 2021.
Yeah, there are some typos. There's a strange formatting issue going on here, but I did receive the agenda material from the Public Works format in time for the package, and I did not have to do it. So he met his deadline. We plan to take the package and reformat it because something happened there with the different prints and the margins and everything. There's 2 typos which will be fixed. The amounts, the numbers are fine, the map is fine. So I was going to suggest that we have the bids due April 9th. We would make the award at the council meeting on April 20th, which would give us plenty of time to review all the bids. This is if they're reasonable. If they're not, like what has happened in the last couple of years, we would have to reject some of them and try to make an arrangement. But this is being bid earlier this year. It's still, I would say, 3 weeks behind where we'd like it. So next year it'll get done quicker. And generally, when it's bid out earlier in the year, you get better prices than when some of the agenda items came in from individuals in which they came in June and July. It's just not the time to be doing these things. So I think we're back onto a regular schedule. So that will be helpful. The contract period is from May 24th through November 15th. And obviously, the grass will grow like crazy in the beginning. If it's a regular year, and November 15th is nothing. So it's just the term, because sometimes there can be grass on November 15th. So this has just been the term that's period of time that's been used.
I have a couple other small details on that though, is they bush hog up that McCarty Road, up the sewer line on the left-hand side of that road that goes all the way up through there. And over the years, if you happen to go down by there, you'll see that the trees and everything keeps coming in, or there's blowdowns and everything else. So they're just mowing a very narrow path. Eventually, there's going to lead to problems when you have to go up there and repair the sewer through there. You're not going to make it through there.
Okay.
Okay. And one other thing on the mowing, I believe it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the town ended up putting a brand new chain link fence all the way around the sewage treatment plant down there, where the existing fence that was put in 1975 eventually fell over due to the slope of the ground and trees and everything else. This new chain link fence is right near the ground, but the other issue is trees start growing up underneath that fence and they grow up through it. You're going to eventually ruin that chain link fence also and have to replace it.
All right, good points here. Part of the work that we're doing with having an engineering firm as our operator is that we are getting a lot of expertise on items, fixing items that normally had not been fixed. We are making lists of work for the employees each week with goals and everything to have good communication. So we're getting a lot more done in terms of moving forward for the future. So I'll put those 2 items on the list. And if you see anything else, because you are in that area, let me know.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
That's all I have on that.
thank you, Brent. Anything else on the mowing contracts, folks? Okay, not hearing any, let's vote on putting these contracts out to bid. All those in favor of resolution 21-23, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, not hearing any, that will pass. And we're gonna move on to resolution 21-24.
Resolution 21-24, resolved that the town council waive the regulation of bid and contracts, section 106 of the administrative code, and authorize the town manager to file applications with Efficiency Maine for the small municipality retrofits funding opportunity for projects at the municipal building, public works garage, water department, and sewer department to not exceed $25,000, which after incentives are received has an estimated cost to not exceed $15,000. Such funds to be encumbered through the town's grant match fund, and further to authorize the town manager to execute all required paperwork upon approval of the town attorney.
Look for motion, counselors.
Move we adopt resolution 21-24.
Thank you. I'll need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, counselors, discussion. This is a project that Catherine has spoken about a couple different times. Basically, it can save the town money. Catherine?
I would note with projections, which you had received a copy of, and basically the fire chief and our new assistant have been working on this project. It has been a frustrating project in that the timetable, the time period for the use of the monies, which I assume there's some sort of federal deadline attached, in which we would have to have the applications in and then have the project completed in June, is not working well with the contractors that have expressed some interest in the project. And so we did inquire of the state if there could be any extensions. They've said absolutely not. And so that's why I assume there's a federal deadline attached to these monies. This was a project or a program that showed up very quickly and needs to be completed quickly. So Bernard and Kathy, the new Kathy, have been working on this project. The contractors have not provided them with the updated figures, as these were estimates that were put together in-house, which I think might be a bit optimistic, which is why I did make a few changes to the price not to exceed once we're completed here with the incentives, because we had two projects before, which were the payback period was a little bit longer. It worked out really well, but it was a little bit longer than what was projected, which I think is probably the case here. So the electricians that we've contacted that have returned our phone calls, and the two that have come out, have indicated that they can't get the project done in time. They don't believe the supplies are available. As we know, there are difficulties with the supply chain on a lot of items. So there is a chance that this will not go forward, but we'd like to continue and do the best that we can. I did increase the pricing just a little bit. And so if we do find an electrician by the deadline that can work with us, I mean, it's obvious we have to waive the bid policy, because there's no way we could do a bid on this because there's not enough time. And we're having trouble getting electricians that are listed and certified by Efficiency Maine to do this work. That's the issue. Many of our local electricians are not certified for this program. And so there is a chance that this will not go forward, but we will do our best to supply an application if we can to stay within these amounts and adjust any project. We also thought, we talk about retrofitting. We may need to do additional work and just fix the bulbs to try to get ahead. But still, this would be a great project for the town. The other two projects that we did with Efficiency Maine worked out really well. We just had more time then. So I gave you the background information. I apologize, there's not any write-up because we don't have the pricing back from the contractors, who are extremely busy. So that's where we're at.
Any questions, counselors, or further discussion? Okay, not hearing any. Let's go ahead and vote on resolution 21-24. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any, that will pass. And we're on to resolution 21-25.
Resolution 21-25, resolved that the town council authorize the town manager to execute and submit the member acknowledgement form confirming our interest in the Workers' Compensation Fund Safety Incentive Program.
Councilors, will look for a motion.
Move we adopt resolution 21-25.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Discussion, councilors? Catherine, you want to speak to this?
I'll be very quick regarding this, and then we have our safety coordinator here who has a package of the information. Basically, our workers' comp rate has skyrocketed from a few items that have taken place, incident in the Public Works Department. A longstanding issue in the transfer station has not helped the situation, but that is a legal issue. And an issue in the police department. And so with all these items, our rate has increased quite a bit. It would have increased anyway because we, the council had decided to add on with the new budget process several employees. So now the full payment for the wages is in there. So that would increase payment anyway. And workers' comp rates went up anyway due to COVID-19 and everything that's going on in the world. So with our workers' comp experience modification going up so much, we had looked at this program. It does look rather daunting, but when I really went down and looked through everything, we tried to do many of these items when Donnie and I first set up the safety program, and he worked so hard on this. We worked on many of these projects. It just, we could not sustain it with the number of staff that we had in all the grant projects and everything we were working on. We received a specific invitation from MMA to join this program due to our experience mod going up over to 1.4, the highest it's ever been, to my knowledge. There are towns that are higher. There are towns in the 2s and 3s, but we were always below 1. We were above 1 when I got here, and then Donnie and I worked on this, and we went below, and we have usually been very, very good, which costs a lot less. So there are 3 levels in which we can get percentage decreases on our rate. So we will get a decrease in our premium. So I'll let Donnie speak to this to see what his opinion is of the program.
Yeah, I'll be real brief. It's getting late. I got a bunch of billing and stuff due tonight too. One of the things too is, again, this is a good program. I think that we should have no problem attaining it when I get a little free time. As you know, I'm trying to get a new employee at the transfer station to take up some of my laboring stuff that's happening there, so we can get back focused on this. And I think that there's no reason why we couldn't attain in that year time frame to get that 10% or that tier 3. And that's due to obviously strenuous training, recognition. I've been going around doing safety audits on most departments, and one of the things that I'm trying to change is the overall culture of safety. Safety starts with every one of us, and some of us we really need to get a buy-in on that safety part of it. And Brent will know this from the mill, that it does work. It's one of those things that you have to have everybody buy into it. And I think with the council saying that with a positive note that you guys back this and us doing this, is giving a strong message to the rest of the employees that we're serious about safety. And we still have a few issues here and there that obviously I've applied for numerous safety grants that we've got awarded over the last 4 years to be able to keep our workplace safe, along with flammable cabinets, lockout, tagout stations, and that sort of stuff. That's going to be a continuing project for me in the future. But workers' comp rates, obviously, I can't be everywhere. And one of the things that has happened traditionally in town, and it's unfortunate that accidents do happen, and I think that everybody understands that. But to change the culture, to make sure that if we have accidents, we just talked about it in our latest department head meeting, that everything needs to be reported, and we need to look at it, number one, from the damage portion of it. If there's no damage, and if we have somebody that continues to drive off the edge of a road. Maybe it's a health issue, or maybe it's time to get their eyes checked to find the root cause of what's actually happening. And most employees are pretty good about it. A lot of employees, I think, are scared. They're afraid that they're going to lose their job. And I've been here a long time, and I haven't seen anybody lose the job if it was something that was an accident, not intentionally done. But I think at this point, we're trying to change that safety culture. We still have a ways to go. We still have people that they only safe when they see me walk around. And you see people will start running and doing things that they know they're supposed to be doing at the beginning of the day. And then we've got people that are honest about it, that they forget to put their safety vest on when they get out of the truck, and they admit to it. And so we're going to have some more training, and we're going to do some update on a few of our plans. But I think this goal is attainable, and we really need to change the culture. The biggest one we used to have was strains and sprains, or slips and falls, and we've been hitting on that. At least I have been amongst the departments in the last years. But we really need to get back to that grassroots, getting all the department heads involved. Each one of those should be in charge of safety in their own department. And sometimes that's tough. Steve is well-staffed at this point. Obviously, outside departments, you've got Chris has got him and another employee. I've got two employees, a truck driver, and hopefully I'll be hiring a third employee. So it'll allow me to free me up to better see what's going on and making sure that we get these guys to buy in. But by all intents and means, this is a good program. I think it's attainable, and hopefully will change the culture and the attitude amongst the rest of the town employees.
Amanda, you have a question?
Yes, Donnie, I'm curious, what is your reporting policies? Are you doing reporting of near misses and stuff like that as well?
I do if I know about them. And that's one of those things that, you hate to hear somebody say something to you in the past and that they saw something happen, and then, well, when did that happen? And you try to go back and investigate. But I do have an accident investigation form when it comes to town vehicles. I also do the same thing and do near misses with people who have these actual incidents. I document them and try to come up with a root cause of why the actual incident happened. And I think that sometimes it doesn't get construed to the other department heads themselves that this is something that we need to do. This is something that we need to track, because maybe we need to make changes to our operation, or maybe we need to seriously look at some of the stuff. And some of the stuff they can't do, like our CDL drivers. I'm the drug enforcement representative, the DER for our federal program for our trucks. When they get in an accident, they're supposed to report them, because I have to make a determination how the accident happened, what the property damage is, and whether they go for a drug and alcohol test. They go for a ride with me to the nearest testing facility. So some of that stuff we do already because of federal mandate. And it's tough if somebody doesn't report something or doesn't. I'm one guy again, and if I'm at the transfer station baling cardboard downstairs all day long, I don't know what's going on that Thursday afternoon when somebody slipped off a truck and because they weren't tied off or something, and then they said, "Oh, I didn't get hurt, and no harm, no foul." And believe me, I see it a lot. It's one of those things that Murphy seems to follow me around in my back pocket. And what I try to tell people is that you've done something wrong is when you do it and then you look around over your shoulders to see if anybody saw that you did it, sort of thing. And we're trying to change that attitude a little bit. It's going to be a long road.
As part of your culture change, then, are you looking at implementing a near miss reporting system where you are requiring employees to report those near misses? Because I know that happened to be a very positive change that happened like at Chimbro when I was working there.
And that's what we're doing. We want to implement. And the other thing that we really need to get some teeth behind, and I don't think that there's no reward system for people who practice safety every day. The ones that that I don't have to talk to on a monthly or yearly basis, and then you've got some other ones that there's no consequences to them violating safety rules. I get them that they'll stick their hand out. Oh, go ahead and slap me on the wrist. And you go, no, I'm serious. You may work for another department, but what you just did is wrong. And this is what you need to do to correct that behavior. And let them know that we have consequences for it. I know Chimbro, if you get caught in the road without your vest, you get a day off without pay. So that's part of that buy-in process and making sure that they do report these near misses to us, that there are consequences to it. People tend to do the most they can with the least amount of workability. I've seen that too, but if it takes them 10 minutes to do something, I want them to take that 10 minutes and do it right, and then have a recordable.
Amanda,
you,
your
Donnie.
hand is still up. Did that answer your question that you had? Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Mike, I'm going to invite you into the conversation, even though you're not a counselor, but go ahead.
He's the insurance guy.
I think the thing that might be advantageous to counselors is for you to understand that the insurance industry over the years has changed. You're with Maine Municipal for your workers' comp for a reason. And the reason is that you can't go out and buy regular insurance. Maine Municipal is a risk pool. So you're in with about 450 other municipalities who all share in this risk. And Donnie's 100% right. Getting onto this program will improve that loss ratio that you have. But I would suggest that in addition to that, that the finance committee people get a presentation from Maine Municipal, or have Catherine do it for you, so that you understand how mod rates are applied. And it's not necessarily just a major accidents. It's also based on frequency. So if you have a small cut hand or something like that, 5 of those can impact your experience mod every bit as much as a $100,000 loss. So it's really something that you ought to dig into, and probably the finance committee is the one to do it. Safety is not inexpensive. You will find that it's going to cost you some money. You will probably not recoup enough money to pay for the program by lowering your expense mod, but you will certainly improve the quality of your employees and the safety. The biggest thing that drives workers' comp right now is primarily fire departments, police departments, and automobile exposures from public entities. So those are areas that Donnie is well versed in and deserves every bit of your support. And to the point where, like you said, Chimbro is probably one of the most successful risk pools in the state, maybe in the country. Very good experience, and they do have penalties for safety violations. So, you can start out small, get it big, and you'll see the results. That's pretty much what I have to say.
Thanks, Mike. Counselors, any other discussion?
I'd like to say something there.
Yeah, go ahead, Brent.
I apologize, I missed a little bit there because the battery went dead on this computer, but getting back into it, with this program, which I've been involved with all kinds of these like this, and I think Dawn touched on it some, you're gonna need some in detail written policies, procedures, checklists for people, planning, and training. A lot of them are gonna need training, and you're gonna need auditing, self audits and supervisors auditing the people to try to see what behaviors we need to focus on to correct, change, or help improve on to stop people from getting hurt. So you're gonna need a lot of written stuff down for people to follow, even like a handbook.
Donnie, do you have a safety committee, or are you a safety committee of one?
We do actually, we do have a safety committee. We used to meet, try to meet quarterly, and then because of COVID, it's kind of dropped the ball on it. It's kind of been kind of tough. But there's myself and Catherine, and usually we have somebody from the office, and we have department heads that actually sit down. We used to sit down quarterly and we'd have an agenda, and we go over. This is one of those things where we used to go over those recommendations. The committee would come up with recommendations for me to maybe go research something or figure something else. And I will tell you at this point that we do have written policies. I've helped every department we have numerous safety policies and there's numerous policies and procedures in place. It's whether they, and every year annually, I have them, they have to review them and give a sign off copy every year because that's a mandate, and give them to the town manager to make sure that all those policies are looked at. And if we need to make any changes, we amend those, and then we go back and train those employees on those amended changes. And it's, we've gone in depth, and it's gone from, we just actually had an insurance audit because of some of the loss we had from our workers' comp. One of our guys had come out and they had come up and inspected me, and they looked around the transfer station recycling center and said, yeah, that's easy. You did a great thing. You got all your policies here. You got your inspection sheets. You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. And then he said, let's sit down and look at all of your last 7 claims. And I went, excuse me? And he said, well, yeah, the last 7 claims since June. I said, you got the wrong guy, because I said, nobody here's got hurt. And he looked, and we had some slip, trips, and falls with the highway and a few other things with the public works. And he says, why am I here? I said, that's a good question. So we set up another audit for the public works, and he went through and identified some areas. And one of the things that I'm trying to get him more proactive, especially department heads, is that I initially wrote the programs and helped with their help to figure out what they needed. And at some point in time, they need to read them and amend them or modify them depending on what their job duties are. So what's happened is we found some deficiencies, so we correct those. And I think a lot of them have come back thinking that that's my job to do all that stuff. And it's not. It's everybody needs to buy into it. And every department head is in charge of their employees. So if I'm not there as the safety guy, and somebody needs to be there that has the ability and has the authority to be able to correct that behavior, which is the department heads. And that's why we thought it was a no-brainer to have them in our safety committee. So yeah, we do have meetings. We just haven't had them in what, 1.5 years, Catherine, or so going on now.
Due to just before the COVID, we actually had one scheduled and had to cancel it, but we
Right.
even monthly when we first started out, and then went to quarterly, which is the requirement of the state for to get an incentive on your workers' comp insurance policy.
Donnie, really quickly, I wonder if maybe as you start gearing up again to ensure that, because I agree that council buy-in is going to be really important, and having the employees know that the council is continuously being updated can also give power to the program and say that we are interested. We agree with you that everybody is in charge of safety, not just you as a safety manager. So maybe Catherine and Donnie together, you can figure this out. Maybe we could get reports after those meetings happen, so that we're kept in the loop about those changes and any reportable incidents, obviously without any identifying information. And that could be helpful as well.
Sure. Jason, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, just right quick. Donnie, do you know where the Public Works Garage stands on that audit? I know I looked at that and there was like 10 items, and there was, I mean, some of it's kind of concerning for safety issues, obviously. Do you know where they stand on correcting those issues? Or
I met with Steve last Monday, and we talked about it some, and that was, well, I'm busy, you need to do this for me. Came to boot, and I said, listen, this is your thing. I've given you the tools. I sat down, I said, I'm here to help consult with you and do those. He's well on his way to finishing that up and getting those corrected. One of them was simply getting the platform in the building that was built beside the water garage they used for storage building, getting that platform rated by an engineer. There were a few other things there, the roof not being sanded down back.
and some labels I saw.
And PPE hazard assessment.
Yeah, labeling. Yeah.
Like for the use of the wood chipper, I have one at the transfer station. I give him mine so he could go over the PPE hazard assessment. He said, well, no, I need to do. So we've got it tagged out. He's not using that machine for the time being until he can give me that PPE hazard assessment and a few other things. So a couple of things are going to take probably a month for him to do. So our response to that is that they're not going to use those 2 pieces of equipment until they have those in place. And I have them locked and tagged out with my lock and my tag. So I'm sure that unless if he cuts it off, there'll probably be consequences, but I don't think he's going to be that type of guy. I don't think he's going to take that chance. But the other thing is just so you guys understand, I have audited all the departments. They all have more than enough safety equipment. I mean, the ones that need fall protection have got it. We buy gloves, we buy vests, we're really on top of that. So if they ever come back and say that that something is need is not being met, that's probably going to be untrue. We've talked about trench boxes and them working in on the roadway, and then people getting upset because they're not using them. I've written grants. They've got 3 trench boxes available. So they say they can't use a trench box. They had to have 3 different sizes. We have all the equipment to be able to do the job safely. But one of the things that I think is important to this too, is at some point, again, this buy-in comes at the end with maybe some sort of recognition thing, whether we do it once a year or do something. I think that would be an important part of it, to recognize people for working safe for a number of years. And that's something simple and very cheap to do, to recognize people and get people the recognition they deserve, because they do come in every day and work safe and make sure that everybody else is staying safe.
So Donnie, I don't spend a lot of time in the Public Works garage or the water department. None of us really do.
Right.
But I know when I was teaching, we did lab training, lab safety training with the students, and we had signage all around the classroom just to remind people, because sometimes when you're in there and you don't do something all of the time, or you're not using that piece of equipment all of the time, you forget the safety stuff that you need to do in order to be safe. Is there, do you have within your program like daily safety reminders? Like do the guys all meet in the morning in each department before they go off and get their work assignments for the day? Is there a way to have like a daily safety reminder for them? Like, don't forget today, you know, remind them about a little safety tip type thing, just to keep it in the front of their mind, as well as having signage on, like say a piece of equipment on the key tag or something that has a little safety reminder, like don't forget to check, you know, check under the tires or behind this or behind that, or like checklists or things, or in the workshop, put your eyeglasses on when you're at this workstation, or things like that. Is that in place?
Well, I think it's we don't have anything. I do it with my guys in the morning. Obviously, I give them direction in the morning. I give them direction once, and they should be able to go about the day. But we talk a little bit in the morning about like even for the public, getting some salt and sand out in front of some of the doors. Make sure you're paying attention if you're outside. Make sure if you're getting on the forklift, you got your vest on, because we got traffic coming in and out. And I get that from industry, and Brent can attest to this too. I go in there, and the first thing that they do in the morning there at that mill is they have a 10 or 15 minute safety meeting amongst the people. And if they have any concerns from the day before or what's going on, and maybe give them a safety message for the day. That's something I do outside, and I think it works for me, and I do it with my guys. But again, that buy-in that we need to, they really should. I mean, it's at the end of the day, everybody compliments me on how clean my floors and stuff are at the transfer station. Well, the last 15 minutes of every day, guess what they're doing? We gotta tear down. That's a housekeeping maintenance issue. And if you're going in an industry, housekeeping is always a problem. That's where people get hurt, fires start, that sort of thing. So I've got it probably embedded in my employees' head. And I don't know if that really takes place with some of these other departments or not, but it should be a 10 or 15 minute thing every day. And you're right, that would be an area where we need to focus on too.
Okay. Counselors, do we have any more discussion about item 2125 about this fund safety incentive program? It sounds like it's a win-win for us, that it'll help identify some issues, or at least the checklist will help look at different areas in order to draw attention to them, as well as have the benefit of possibly decreasing our insurance payments. Okay, not hearing any other discussion. Let's go ahead and vote on that. All those in favor of resolution 21-25, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, not hearing any, that's gonna pass. Donnie, thanks a lot for all of your extra input tonight and hanging in there and waiting. It seems like your items always get stuck at the end of the meeting.
But that's all right. I'm glad you guys have me. And, anytime you have any questions about my facility safety, you got Brent and Jason, any of you. Amanda, your mother used to work in risk analysis and stuff. It's your town too, and those departments work for you. So anytime that you got questions and we talk about safety, we could even do a safety audit together. And sometimes you get a free minute that puts the exclamation point that we're real serious about what we do. And I thank you guys for having me.
Okay, thanks, Donnie.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
we're
you.
gonna go on to resolution 21-26.
Resolution 21-26, resolved that the town council authorize the town manager to submit letters of interest for the Northern Border Regional Commission 2021 Economic Infrastructure Development Program.
We'll look for a motion.
Move we adopt resolution 21-26.
Thank you. Need a second?
A second.
I missed that. Pete, was that you?
No,
Brent?
not
Brent?
me.
All right. So counselors, discussion on this. Catherine, do you want to chime in on this one?
Yes, thank you. This is a grant program that has come up very quickly. The announcement was provided, I think, on the 6th or the 8th of the month. Letters of interest are due at the end of the month prior to our next council meeting. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. The town has had a Northern Regional Border Commission grant before. It does seem to get a little bit more complicated since we were one of the first towns, along with Auburn in 2016, in the state of Maine to be awarded a grant. These grants are 50% match. Usually they are around water, sewer, infrastructure type grants that will help economic development. So our last project was on Madawaska Road, in which we were able to replace a section of the Madawaska sewer system, which was in severe deterioration and would have not prevented, but caused issues with the full development of the former SAS facility, now to be Puritan. There's more work that could be done up in that area, going down into Detroit Street. That would be helpful because the area is very small and does need to have the sewer system expanded if possible. So in the short period of time, we are working with all of our associates to look over some projects. Also mentioned at the Main Street stakeholders meeting last week was broadband, in which we have contacted the state on a number of programs. And yes, DECD, the Department of Economic Community Development, does have a Connect Maine broadband funding, but we probably would not qualify for that. We're not working in a regional project and it's not through the whole town. According to statistics at the state, we have 100% coverage for internet, which we do not. You would have to do surveys to prove that. But there is electrical work, broadband, some extra construction that may be required on the Main Street project, and that would be an economic development project. So there are a number of projects that we could look at with all of our associates. And so we have them starting to work on this with us. I would write the grant if the letter of interest was accepted. So at this point, this is a sort of, we're going out to meet the deadlines and see what we can throw in there for projects and see what might be of interest to the federal government and the federal commission. And if they are, we'll bring it back to the council and figure out if we're able to go forward or not. But this would allow us to get our foot in the door for a project that would be for economic development, to help the jobs and to help bring industry and more business to the community.